Borough Council meeting, 17th of September 2020. Before we get into any of the details, please ensure that any mobile devices or mobile phones that you have are switched off. If you are not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute them, your microphone will be muted for you. To assist people viewing the meeting, could everyone please turn off their cameras and only turn them on when speaking, and also introduce themselves whenever they do speak. That way we'll get the announcement and the image and the content together. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting also, could members wishing to speak please use the hands up facility on Teams whenever possible. There may be some that don't have that, but we have a separate way of dealing with that. Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Those are the introductory speeches. Now, before we begin the meeting proper, I have an announcement. I am sad to inform Council that Frank Brown, who was the leader of the Council between 2002 and 2008, and Helen Power, who was elected to the Council in 2018, but had to step down in 2019 due to ill health. Both of these people passed away recently, and our thoughts are with their families and friends. I understand that Councillor Conway and Councillor Jorgensen would like to say a few words. Maybe other members may wish to speak or not, it's their choice. So, Councillor Stephen Conway, would you like to start, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was one of Frank's most implacable opponents while he was leader of the council. We clashed often and disagreed on many matters, both of style and substance. But I admired his considerable achievements. He had a clear sense of what he wanted to do and the determination to do it. As I told him when he left the council, he could be justly proud to have played a major part in transforming a defeated and demoralised Conservative group into an election-winning machine. His early death is a tragedy, not just for his family and friends, but for his party. I want to focus now on Helen, whom I knew much better. When Prue was leader of our group and I was her deputy, we interviewed Helen for the post of political assistant. We were won over immediately by her enthusiasm and warmth. We offered her the post, and she went on to vindicate our decision every day she worked for us. Sadly, I never had a chance to work with Helen once she became a councillor, but when I helped in the by-election caused by her illness, I became very quickly aware of the affection with which she was regarded by electors in her ward. That affection was thoroughly deserved. Helen was one of the nicest, kindest and most considerate people I've had the good fortune to meet. She bore her illness with characteristic good humour and great courage. She even visited the committee room on the day of the by-election, inspiring us to a final effort which helped us to secure a brilliant successor in Sarah. Helen was a very special person. She will be missed greatly by councillors and council officers, as well as by her family and many friends across the borough. Thank you.
Councillor Jorgensen, would you now like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to say a few words about Helen. I didn't know Helen very well. I remember her most as a very vivacious and pleasant leader of the, a supporter of the Liberal Democrat group. She was extremely nice and very pleasant with everybody. And I think it's a great loss to her family and to the council that she died at such a very young age, having really not had a chance to get into politics as well as she should have done. So I would like to express my condolences, particularly to her family. I'd also like to pay tribute to Frank Brown, the former leader of the council who died on the 8th of August. Frank cared very deeply about improving the lives of residents throughout Working in his capacity as leader of Working Borough Council, and made an extremely valuable contribution to our community. He was a good friend to many, and he was always generous with his time. He had huge energy and tremendous clarity of thought and vision. Frank was first elected to Working Borough Council in 1996 as a Conservative member representing Remenham and Walgrave. In 1997, he was appointed chairman of the Highways Committee, a position he held until 2000. In 1997, he became the leader of the opposition, and aged 33, Frank became the youngest council leader in the country when the Conservative group regained control of the council in 2002. He also served as chairman of Berkshire Leaders Group, represented the county on the South East Leaders Panel and the South East Regional Assembly. As leader, Frank tackled multi-million-pound overspends, re-established solid financial foundations, trebled reserves, reinstilled a rigorous financial discipline in the organisation, and contributed to Working Borough being recognised as having the best quality of life in the country in 2007. He encouraged me to become a borough councillor when I first met him and got involved in campaigning on behalf of residents. He listened and helped me get the right access to people and resolve problems. He never ignored people, and he didn't only help me, he helped many, many others. Frank was even ever willing to go out and about talking to people about his favourite subject, which was how we could create a better working borough. I first met him in the Third Thames Crossing group when he spoke eloquently with passion about the need for another bridge over the Thames. As a bonus, I spent many happy hours chatting with him in the car whilst ferrying him to and from meetings, which were mostly held in obscure Oxfordshire village halls. He worked for the Obama campaign in the US and came back with lots of ideas, and he also helped charities and was an active supporter of Sue Ryder. Frank suffered throughout his life with ill health, including having a stroke when he was 41, but he never complained despite several serious illnesses. He focused instead on his vision of what he wanted to achieve to help others. His was an amazing achievement, having been adopted at the age of 4 or 5 and coming to this country only able to speak German. He was a natural leader, eloquent, calm and thoughtful, with a wonderful wit and dry humour. Frank will be sadly missed by all who knew him. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jorgensen. We would now hold 1 minute's silence in memory of the 2 ex-councillors. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that minute of silence. We now start the meeting proper. We begin with agenda item 47, apologies. Does anyone have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 3 apologies. John Kaiser, Simon Weeks and Oliver Whittle.
Thank you. Item 48, the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any amendments to the minutes of that last meeting? Seeking members' agreement to the minutes. I now will assume that if you are in agreement with the minutes, that we will continue unless anyone advises that they disagree.
I have raised my hand on this one.
Is that Councillor Frewein?
Yes, indeed, sorry.
Yes, would you like to state your amendment?
Yeah, item 47 on page 23, which was the change to the polling district changes in Shinfield. During the meeting, I did raise my concern that it was the first I'd heard of this and made a request that as ward councillors we work more closely together, irrespective of political party. I would like that to be included in the minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. a note has been made of that, and the minutes will be duly amended.
Thank you very much.
So, there are no other amendments? Yes. No hands in the air. Thank you. So we now move on to agenda item 49, declarations of interest. Does anyone wish to make a declaration of interest?
Mr. Chairman, it's Emma.
Councillor G, yes.
Yes, just to let you know that I've been invited to join the Wokingham Citizens Advice Bureau.
Thank you. That will be duly noted. And Councillor Andy Croy has also got a hand up.
Thank you. Just in relation to item 60.1, my mother is the campaigns manager at Citizens Advice Bureau, and that's a declaration of personal interest.
All right. Just those two. That's all I can see on the hands up.
Sorry, Malcolm, it's Councillor Maria G. It was Councillor Emma Hobbs that spoke before.
Sorry.
I need to declare an interest as a member as a trustee of the Citizens Advice Bureau, so I will not be contributing anything to the debate or voting on the motion by Councillor Burgess.
Thank you. So that's 3 declarations of interest we've had then. Thank you. No more? I'll have a look. No. So we move on to the next item, item 50, which is the Mayor's announcements. With the slight lightening of the lockdown, I have been able to attend a few events recently, all done obviously in suitable social distancing, or face masks, either or both. But I won't give you the details of them now. Suffice to say that I have attended some of those, and that's all I need to make for Mayor's announcements now. So we now move on to agenda item 51, which is public question time. We have 30 minutes for this. Can I please remind you, members, to get to the question as quickly as you can without too much of a preamble, so that we can make maximum use of the time. Secondly, that supplementary questions must relate either to the original question or the response that is given to that question. And finally, executive members' responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and all of these items will be timed. So on that basis, we move to a question, and I see that Mr. Peter Humphreys has a question to ask of Councillor Jorgensen. Mr. Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The pedestrian-controlled traffic lights in Wiltshire Road were recently replaced on an almost like-for-like basis, bar 2 features. One was low energy bulbs, the other was the addition of a proximity sensor. Fomites are a significant factor in the spread of COVID-19, so anything that obviates the need to push a button to stop the traffic is obviously a good idea. But the Council's Highways Department disagree, for although paying for this potentially life-saving feature, they are refusing to activate it, forcing pedestrians to touch a potentially infected button. The executive member for Highways is fully aware of this and has chosen to support the bizarre policy decision. Would she please explain why her department won't use the sensors which taxpayers' money have funded, the consequence of which is promoting the spread of the disease?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Humphreys. It's nice to see you. The pedestrian control lights in Wiltshire Road were recently upgraded to utilise low energy lamps, pedestrian detection equipment and new traffic signal controllers containing improved communication and management software. The detection equipment is in place and functioning so as to extend the green man phase when slow walkers or groups of pedestrians are crossing the road and longer stages required. The Council did not, however, introduce measures that remove the need for a push button demand for crossing completely, since the need for this facility to be retained was considered to be greater at the time, and the view of the potential for this measure was scheduled to follow the introduction of a more permanent active travel measures to support walking and cycling. However, as a result of the gradual removal of COVID supporting measures in the town, the need for automatic detection remains low. The use of a push button to call the pedestrian at a stage at a crossing is deemed to create no greater health hazard for pedestrians than their use of cash point machines at banks, payment machines in shops and door handles to public buildings, all of which members of the public are faced with when using the town and for which their personal hygiene and COVID prevention actions should provide sufficient protection. I should also point to you at the June 2020 European Centre for Disease Control report on COVID transmission, which said that indirect transmission from fomites, which is things such as buttons, is considered possible, although so far no occurrences have been documented. Hand washing, I would say, remains the best solution. The only way you can get COVID through touching things is if you then touch your mouth, nose, or eyes. It's not transmitted through the skin. We will review this decision should there be any deterioration in the COVID situation, which would require any further measures to be introduced in line with government and EU advice.
Thank you. Ms. Humphreys, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. As we know from the media, there's different views on science and it's never binary black and white. For instance, the prestigious journal, the New England Medical Journal, has said that fomites can be a problem, and hence that's why if you go, for example, to a supermarket, they spray all the trolleys that you're going to touch and other surfaces. That's why when I go to my physiotherapist, they have a 10-minute gap between appointments so they can spray everything that possibly the last patient has touched to prevent disease. In the well-known phrase, every little helps, why are the council refusing to actually activate this facility that they paid for? And it just seems ridiculous that you're not willing to help. And if we're never going to prove if an infection comes from it, but surely you should have it on your conscience to try and prevent infections. So why will you not do it?
We will follow the government guidance and we will follow the professional advice from the disease control people. And the information at the moment is that what we're doing is quite sufficient.
Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 52, petitions. Does anyone wish to hand in a petition?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Kerr here.
Councillor Kerr. Yes, would you like to present your petition, please?
Certainly. This is in relation to a safe crossing on Barkham Road. The B3349 Barkham Road is a busy major artery road of Wokingham Town Centre. The area is also surrounded by a high density of housing, including a new development that sits on the old guide dog site. Residents would like to walk and cycle more, but it is not safe and easy to cross Barkham Road, which acts as a barrier due to the continuous high volume and speed of vehicles that use it. Installing a safe pedestrian and cycle crossing would provide the connectivity between the residential areas and facilitate more active travel and less car journeys, in line with this authority's commitment to tackling climate change and air pollution. It also would support the new Department for Transport guidance, Gear Change, a bold vision for cycling and walking, which sets out plans to place active travel at the heart of transport planning. This petition is a demonstration of suppressed demand for the need for a safe crossing in this location, and we call upon the Highways Authority to install one, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Thank you for summarising the petition, which I believe has already been sent to Democratic Services and will now be passed to the appropriate officers.
Thank you very much.
I now move on to agenda item 53, which is the Tenants' Charter. Mr. Steve Bowers is here, I believe, and he is chairman of the Tenant and Landlord Improvement Panel, and he will present his report. Mr. Bowers, are you there? Would you like to present your report, please?
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Just yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me back again. A year's gone very quickly for the tenants. We presented this last year, the charter, and you asked us to come back with a yearly report, which we've done. Firstly, what I'd like to do, if it was all right with you, Mr. Mayor, is just thank a few people. I would like to thank the involved tenants. I would like to thank the members of TLIP, the Tenant and Landlord Improvement Panel. And also, I would like to thank them, the Housing Department, Simon Price, Kim Yakubushin, and the Tenant Involvement Team for all their help, and for you guys, for all you councillors, to support the way you do your tenants, because you guys stand up there and you get stones thrown at you, and I know what that's like a little bit, but probably not as much as you. So I do appreciate what you do and what you do for your tenants. We have nearly 3,000 homes out there now, and we're doing very well. Thank you very much. As you can see from the report, just a few things, a couple of things. I know you're pressed for time, and I don't want to use a lot of your time up, but unfortunately, we've had lockdown for the last few months, and that has pushed the tenant involvement team and ourselves, the involved tenants, to all go online and use Microsoft Teams. I think this has pushed us down the line about 5 years, because we'd intended to do this. We actually put computers in place to do this, hence the reason I'm talking to you on now. And yeah, so it is sort of pushed us on, but we are still doing an amazing amount of work. We've done hundreds and, well, thousands of hours just recently. We also, unfortunately, we didn't do the community fund days, but I'd like to bring to your attention the community fund days that we done last year. We did 7 community fund days over 8 days, and nearly 8,000 people came along to them fund days. So, and over 5,000 of them were tenants. So that is, for me, is a tremendous thing to get involved with. We try to be innovative, we try to be different and all that sort of stuff. So what we're going to do when we can get back out to community fund days is we're actually going to hold our AGM at the fund days. We're going to put a desk there and get involved with all more tenants, because when they come along to the AGMs, we only get a few. This way we can hit a lot more people. So that's what we intend doing. Our social media site is up and running. Well, it's running. We're making strides towards that. We are now, well, last year we touched nearly 50,000 people when the sort of community fund days were on, and 3,000 people expressed an interest to come along. So it's all working very, very well. And yeah, as I say, we'd just like to thank you for your support. And hopefully you've read the report, and if you've got any questions, if I can answer them, I will. If not, I'll get back to you, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
It is indeed, Mr. Bowers. Thank you very much for that report. If any members wish to ask Steve Bowers a question about the report, could they please indicate now by using the hands up feature? First name here is Councillor Andrew Mickelberg. Councillor Mickelberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Steve. I'd like to thank you and all of the involved tenants for the wonderful and vital voluntary work that you do, and for another really comprehensive and informative report. Could I ask briefly about item 7 in that report? I'm really pleased to see acknowledgement that we have an ageing tenant population, and that quite a number of initiatives are in place to support this group of tenants. My question is, do you feel the requirements for housing to be adapted that many of our older tenants have in order to support continued independent living are being addressed efficiently and effectively? For instance, adaptations to help them get in and out of their home and to move about inside their homes safely. And do you have any suggestions how this could be improved further? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, we just recently set up a new, we will call it independent living. It's really the sheltered group. So we are looking into issues with that. COVID has sort of knocked us back for that. But if I can give you a, for instance, about adaptations and one thing and another, Mr. Price, Simon Price, he and I work very, very closely together. He informed me that a tenant had a problem with her step. As soon as he found out about it, he was out there. He got a text from this 91-year-old lady saying, thank you very much for renewing my step. And they also put grab rails in there. We have, I think we are on the right way. And I think we can always do better. We can always do better. And that's what the involved tenants strive to do, is make it better for older people. But we want to focus on the older people, because obviously we're all getting older, and the facilities out there, we just want to make them better as we can. But we can only do that by involving the people, the sheltered accommodation, in all these sorts of avenues. But it's so vast and ranging, Andrew, that it's, you know, we could be here for years doing all this sort of stuff. But suggestions, just do what we're doing. We are making strides into it. As I keep mentioning Simon, but he's on the case, and as long as I can support him and he supports us, yes, I think we will make strides into it, and very good strides, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person to question is Councillor Daniel Sargent. Councillor Sargent, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation tonight, Steve, and well done to you and the TLIP team for the excellent work done so far. As the councillor representative here today of the WBC housing team, I know how keen we are to continue to work extremely closely with the TLIP. It's very important to us as it helps us develop and progress to become the best landlords that we can possibly be. Thank you again, and there is a lot of great detail in the report, and I look forward to reviewing further progress in the future.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. The next person to speak should be Councillor Frewein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to hold up the meeting, so I'm just going to say, obviously, the Charter has the support of the Liberal Democrats, and in addition, to thank the involved tenants for everything they do. They really are a great bunch of people, and it's a real pleasure to work with them. And I wish them all the best for the future, and I'm sure we'll see them again next year.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. The next hand up on my list is Councillor Jim Frewein.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say what an excellent report this is. It's actually readable. It's not full of gobbledygook. And I think that some of the strategies in there, particularly customer service, where we're looking for friction-free customer experience, and some of the technology strategies, I would hope will be adopted into the wider customer experience, so it covers all of our customer experiences, because I think it's that good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I have just two hands left. The next one is Councillor John Halsall, and he currently will be followed by Councillor Bill Soane.
Thank you.
I would like to reiterate my thanks for the very good work that you do and the support that you give the council. As you know, we are committed to increasing our social and council homes in the borough. Our 1,000 times 4 is likely to be beaten, I'm delighted to say, and I'm delighted to hear of the support that you receive from Simon Price and his team, and please don't hesitate to contact myself or my deputy should you require any further help. Thank you very much, Steve, for all your help. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. And finally, Councillor Bill Soane.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. During my year as mayor last year, I attended many of the community fun days, and can I just say what a great pleasure it was. They are so enthusiastic. We had a great time. I'd like to thank everybody who made me so welcome. And also, I'd like to say thank you for the carol concerts and the carol walkabouts that we did. I know they asked me to mime. I don't know why they did that, but thank you very much. It was a great year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So, Councillor Halsall, I understand that you're going to propose the recommendations in this report or this update. Is that correct?
Indeed so, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder?
And it's an honour to do so. Yes, I have a seconder in Daniel Sargent.
Councillor Sargent is the seconder. Thank you very much for that. So following the presentation, the questions and the proposing and seconding, we can now go to the vote on the recommendations set out in this update. Voting will be undertaken using the hands up facility on Teams. So some members have informed us that they do not have the hands up facility, so they will be asked individually how they wish to use it. But the voting will be done using the hands up facility on Teams, as we've used before. So to begin, can you all make sure that your hands are down, please? Every single one of them. Even if they were up a few moments ago, make sure they're all down. Scan down here. Can't see any hands on display. Good. So now that they're down, anyone who wishes to vote against this update, sorry, please check that. Yeah, that's what it says here. Bear with me. If they're all down, anyone who wishes to vote for this, please use the hands up facility, and we'll pause long enough for the votes to be counted. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is unanimous. So on the basis of that, the recommendations are agreed. So, Mr. Bowers, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us an update on the work of the Tenant and Landlord Improvement Panel.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you everybody for spending the time this evening to help us involve tenants. And if we can do anything for you guys, let us know. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So we now move on to agenda item 54, the Treasury Management Outturn for 2019 and 2020. I understand this is to be proposed by Councillor Daniel Sargent. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Right. And do you have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Halsall.
So proposed by Councillor Sargent, seconded by Councillor Halsall. Councillor Sargent, you can speak for up to 3 minutes on this if you wish.
Okay, shall I start now?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. And yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a privilege to stand in for John Kaiser today and deliver this report to you, particularly as it shows another successful year that the officers have had in delivering the Council's critically important Treasury management strategy. Thanks to Graham and his team for all their work on this. Treasury management is the way that we finance the Council's operations and capital investments in our community. Delivery of what residents expect of us is contingent on Treasury management being done properly. So I'm very happy to bring to members today a report that shows we've done exactly that. External borrowing has risen as planned as we invest further in our ambitious long-term capital programme, building the new roads and schools and delivering the services that our community needs. The Council adhered to all of its prudential indicators through this period, underlining the responsible approach that we've taken. Members will notice that our investment properties have delivered us a return of 5.11% in the last year. That is delivering for residents an extra £1 million of additional income per annum over and above what we would otherwise earn on that investment. This is clearly a huge sum of money, and it enables us to provide more of the services which our residents rely on. And whilst I understand that not all councillors are unanimous in their support of this policy, it's worthwhile at this point, when we've got the results, to consider what exactly that £1 million has been used for in the last year. So once again, congratulations to the officers for this report and the underlying financials behind it. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Councillor Halsall, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I reserve my right to speak later, sir.
Thank you. Okay, in that case, does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Please use the hands up if you wish to speak. Yes, we have some hands in the air. The first one showing is Councillor Rachel Burgess, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I understand that the need to review last year's Treasury outturn and that this is essentially a backward-looking report. But one of the key graphs in the report is the borrowing versus asset values graph. That's table 2 on page 91 of the pack, which is, of course, forward-looking. So the table is based on the MTFP figures, and it shows, as you can see, it shows the debt levels reducing as asset levels are retained at a constant level from 23-24 onwards. Now, the MTFP was obviously agreed pre-COVID-19, but it's sort of surprising that there's no reference to COVID-19 in the report analysis, even in this forward-looking analysis. Now, the general principle has been, in part of the Treasury strategy, to borrow to fund capital investment or other council priorities that then generate income. But if you take table 2, it seems to show a rosy picture, and that the debt, peaks in 22-23 and then falls markedly away while the asset values are retained. But it's just worth noting that there's no explanation of the extent to which these asset and debt forecasts have now changed due to COVID. So, for example, why is there no mention of the impact of the delay in over £100 million of capital programme due to COVID, a good portion of which is funded by debt? The impact of that will surely be that the peak debt falls later, and we sustain that high level of debt for much longer than is presented here. Why is there no mention of any effect on forecasts of asset values due to COVID-19? And why is there no mention of the extent to which income from this capital investment might be reduced due to the impact of COVID on retail and other sectors, how that will affect the analysis? So it's just to point out that these figures are sort of 6 months old now. Members should be aware of the historical nature of the analysis. And it is disappointing that even in the commentary for the forward-looking elements of it, there's not even one reference to COVID-19 and the potential impact on these forward-looking figures. And just lastly, very briefly, I would also take issue with the presentation of the £5 million expenditure last year that's labelled climate emergency. As we have seen, a lot of that expenditure overall is just rebadged from other budgets. So I think the presentation of that expenditure as climate emergency is arguably misleading. Thank you.
Sorry, I appear to have muted myself accidentally there. What I said during your silent moment was that Councillor Clive Jones is the next hand on my screen to speak. Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I want to reiterate once again the very serious concerns that the Liberal Democrat group have with the rising debt that Wokingham Borough is running. Not that long ago, our debt was around £50 million. In 2017, as it approached 400 million, we said we had some serious reservations about how high it was. Our concerns were ignored. You continued to borrow more and to spend it on speculative commercial property ventures. Our residents would be horrified to learn that the debt is now hurtling towards towards £10,000 for every house in the borough. We don't want to be told next year, when our debt levels break the 700 million mark, that this huge level of debt has been due to COVID-19. It isn't. COVID-19 will affect our finances. Our reserves will be hit. Our town and parish councils will also be hit. We are still waiting to hear what support is going to be given to town and parish councils. Robert Jenrick seems to think he has provided money to help town and parish councils. But where is it? At a recent overview and scrutiny meeting, Keith Baker said that the hit in Woodley that they have to take could be up to £1 million. If this is right, surely they need some support. Mr. Mayor, COVID-19 will hurt the country's finances. It will hurt our borough council finances and those of our towns and parishes. But here in Wokingham, it's the Conservative administrations of the last few years that have inflicted most damage on our council's finances. Debt of 700 million is too high. We are being asked to note this report, which we will do. But once again, we're saying that our level of debt is too high. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. And the next hand up on the screen is Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubé.
Good evening, everybody. Okay. I'm afraid to say that this report is very misleading and blissfully unaware of the impact that COVID-19 has had on us since March onwards. It does not factor in the impact that COVID-19 may have had on our property values and our capital projects, many of which are now delayed. As it stands, we do not have the data to say how property values have changed or any other costs that have been incurred since the pandemic started. While in this report it may initially appear that our property investments are paying quite well, It does not truthfully factor in the expected loss of value, which becomes part of the debt that every single resident of this borough has to pay off. What we need is a report that assesses the current situation so we have a realistic idea of what to plan for. Overall, the level of debt that this council has created for itself is a very serious concern. Combined with the necessary consumption of our reserves, it leaves us unprotected in an uncertain world and builds up problems for the future. According to this report, up until March 2020, we had an externally borrowed £279 million, which works out at £1,650,000 per man, woman and child living in the borough. Scrolling down, sorry. Table 2 in this report comes from last year's medium-term financial plan, and it reflects the expected debt level at that time. It can't possibly be sensible to present this table in a report like this now, when we have spent so much on supporting our residents during COVID-19 pandemic with no predicted end in sight. We are no longer living in a stable, predictable financial future. With Brexit looming, we cannot judge what impact this will have on our council finances. So, other than giving us a picture of how life used to be before the pandemic hit, how useful really is this report to us now? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shamati-Bay. Just looking down my screen to see if there's any other hands. There are none. So there's a point of asking if anybody else wishes to speak, because no one is indicating. So we now come back then to disappeared. Oh, two hands have gone up now. Yes. Councillor Stuart Munro, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just listened to that sort of monologue of nonsense about our commercial investments are a bad idea. We went through it over in scrutiny, explained all of the investment strategy that we are doing, and I think I heard Mr. Jones say, Councillor Jones say, well, that sounds all very good. So I don't know quite why we've changed into it's a reckless situation for us all. It's just usual nonsense. So I'm sorry, I cannot agree with what was said.
Thank you. And Councillor John Halsell's hand is in the on the screen. So Councillor Halsell, would you like to speak?
Yes, indeed. At a very recent executive, the opposition pointed out that we should not be reducing our capital spend. And yet today, referring to a report, which is a report on the historical treasury management in 2019-20, it doesn't seek to do a forecast of what it'll be in 2020-21 or 2020-22. The opposition is now saying it's too high. It does seem to be looking both ways. But interestingly enough, it seems that the opposition isn't capable of reading a financial report or even understanding it. And that really is mind-boggling. On page 92, there is an analysis of the capital borrowing, and a huge amount of the capital borrowing is by internal borrowing. The external borrowing is less than half all the figures that are quoted. But I'd ask you to reflect, what is it of the capital budget you wish to defer in order to achieve your objectives? We have a capital budget which is funded by borrowing, and the borrowing will come down as those assets either generate income or they are sold. So I'm not really sure what it is that you're talking about, and it seems that there is not a lot of ambiguity, but a lot of illiteracy. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. The next person to speak is Councillor Prue Bray. If you could
Thank
keep them
you,
brief,
Mr. Mayor. I wasn't planning to speak, but after that, I think I have to correct Councillor Halsall. We were not asking to maintain the capital programme. We were asking for proper information in the report if you're going to change the capital programme. The same as we asked for proper information in the report if you're going to order Hessian sacks, which aren't actually Hessian. I really think that trying to attack the opposition on false grounds is not becoming of you, John, and you really should not have done it.
Yeah. So look for hands on the screen. There's Pooh just finished. Right, so at this point then, with no other hands up, the option is for Councillor Sargent to have his right to reply. Kendall Sargent, would you like to reply?
Thank you. Yeah, just a few words, because we've probably spoken enough on this already. But I think listening to a lot of the opposition councillors there, I think many of them willfully misunderstood this report. It's a backward-looking document. It's not something that's forward-looking. And so whilst obviously COVID is going to affect our financials as a council, you can't expect this particular report to be dealing with it. And I think the constant referrals to COVID aren't really helpful in this context. And then again, from Councillor Jones, we've heard that the council that they're unhappy with the way we're financing and the level of borrowing and so on. But really, we're hearing nothing from the opposition around what parts of the capital programme would they cut back, which of the council's operations will they cut back, which services will they cut to compensate for this financing reduction. That's all I've got to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. So the next thing is then that I should be going to the vote on the recommendation. So before we take the vote, can I ask everybody to make sure that their hand are down? All of them are down. I think. Right. Now, when we do the vote, we are going to use the hands up facility on Teams, as we always do. But if anyone does not have the hands up facility, can they please speak to tell us how they intend to vote? Could they do that now before we do the hands up, please? No one speaking. Okay, so we'll carry on doing the hands up then. Vote. It's all down at the moment, so anyone who wishes to vote for, please use the hands up feature now.
Malcolm, you're muted.
Yes, it seems to. I'm assuming it's accidental. I might be doing it carelessly. What I was saying is I'm going to be doing the second part of the vote, which is those who are against. So on the understanding that all your hands are down at the moment. If you wish to vote against, please use the hands up feature. We've done the 4. This is the hands up.
Not all the hands are down. I can see Stuart Munro's hand has been up all the time.
Can you take them? Councillor Loyes? Some of them appear for a moment and they go away. They're all down?
You're muted again, Malcolm.
Right, we're now going to be doing the vote against. On the basis that all the hands are down, if you wish to vote against, use the hands up feature now. Right, that's been counted. So make sure that all the hands are down. And we go to the third and final bit of this. Anyone who wishes to abstain, please use the hands up feature now. Right. Having looked at them, it is accepted. Recommendations are agreed. Thank you, everybody, for that. I've already asked those who didn't have their hands up, so I've done that. Right, we now come to agenda item 55, which is changes to the Constitution. I believe these will be proposed by Councillor Chris Smith. Councillor Chris Smith, is that the occasion for you?
I don't believe that Chris Smith is here. So I think I need to propose them on his behalf.
Councillor Halsall, you are, well, at the moment I've got you down as doing seconding, but if you do the proposal, then someone will need to second.
Yes, please.
So if you'd like to do the proposition first, the proposal first. No.
Well,
we need the second first. Who can we have as...
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second it. So it's Councillor Hobbs here.
Councillor Hobbs, Emma Hobbs. Right,
Mr. Mayor, should it not be a member of the Constitution Review Working Group that seconds this?
Bear with me, I'll just seek advice for that for a moment.
I don't believe that's necessary, but there's Wayne Smith here, or Imogen, if that's required.
It seems okay. Councillor Hobbs is down as the seconder. So John Halsall, you are the proposer. Emma Hobbs is the seconder.
There is a series.
Councillor Halsall, would you now like to speak then for 3 minutes?
Yeah. There's a series of recommendations to put to council. None of them are earth-shattering. The principal reason for bringing this is the updating of the anti-fraud and corruption strategy and whistleblowing policy and anti-bribery policy and anti-money laundering policy and prosecution and sanction policy and acquisition communications data and court surveillance and covert human intelligence sources policy. So that's a huge amount of really statutory stuff. And we're just updating our constitution. In addition to which, there's the membership of the Wellbeing Board, which is recommending that Susan Parsonage joins it. And then 3 recommendations just to tidy up the petition protocol, the timing and order of business, and motions without notice and recorded vote. So I recommend this those recommendations to the council. If you're going to vote it out, or you have a mind to vote it out or disagree, then we need to take it separately so that we can do the boilerplating of chapter 6 separately and include those, because it's important that we do so. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. So Councillor Hobbs, as the Emma Hobbs is the secretary, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later? Councillor Hobbs?
Sorry, I'm having a few problems with the thing. I reserve my right to speak later. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point we open it up. Does anyone else wish to speak about this? Please, could you use the hands up if you wish to speak? No, I can't see any hands up.
My hand is up, Malcolm.
My hand's up as well.
And so is mine, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Yes. Sorry, I've now got 3 hands up. 4. So, Councillor Stephen Conway, your hand is the first one that's just appeared. Now, Stephen Conway, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We will be supporting these recommendations despite our belief that the 4th is actually unnecessary. I don't recall any councillor abusing the existing recorded vote procedure by making a speech. My main reason for wanting to speak on this item is to ask the working group to look further at what might be done to address the problem of the full council meetings rarely completing their published agenda. Many councillors have expressed concerns about this, and the matter is the subject of a motion proposed by an experienced and well-respected councillor, which we should, if we get that far, debate this evening. I'm afraid the recommendations before us only scratch the surface of that particular problem. We need more fundamental changes before we can convince the people we serve that full council meetings are worthy of their attention and local democracy is functioning effectively. I hope, therefore, that the Working Party will look again at this matter and come up with proposals that make the council, the full council, less about the executive congratulating itself. It has, after all, many other arenas for doing that, and more about providing an opportunity to hold the executive to account and debate matters of concern to our electorate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conway. The next hand in the air is Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubay. Imogen, would you like to speak, please?
I would. Basically, I'm going to speak to say that I felt that the last Constitution Review Working Group meeting we had was one of the most disorderly and chaotic meetings that I've ever seen on this council. And as a result, we completely failed to... The reason why this list isn't very exciting is because we completely failed to address the problems that we are having as a council in order to get the items on our business agenda completed and done. I mean, Stephen Conway has just... explain that, but what we need is to get the important questions and debate going and get through our business to the end. And you know, any motion to put that forward seems to just get shot down or attacked. And just the Constitution Review Working Group, particularly last time, was being attacked on all sides and was having particular problems for getting this done. And I'd like to say that please can we do this better, organise this better in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd-Dubay. The next hand is Councillor Andy Croy. Andy.
Thank you, Malcolm. I have to say I was lucky enough to be invited to the last Constitutional Review Working Group meeting, and one of the main sources of confusion was the two Liberal Democrats saying different things in that meeting. It really did make for quite a difficult time. At times in that meeting. I'd just like to request if we can actually not vote on each individual item, but if we can vote on 1, 3, 5 and 6 together, and 2 separately and 4 separately, because we as a group do not want to vote for the whole package. We've actually got 3 different things we want to do based on those 3 groups of numbers that I've given you.
Do you have a seconder for that? You don't need a seconder? No, I don't think you need a seconder. Okay, so that's a proposition to be considered then. And the last hand in the air for speaking is Councillor Gary Cowan.
Thank you, Malcolm. Stephen Conway stole my thunder, and I just really want to say what a lost opportunity this has been. I've no more to say. I will support the proposal anyway, but it is a lost opportunity.
Thank you. And now the hand have disappeared. The seconder gets a right to speak. So, Councillor Emma Hobbs, would you reserve your right to speak? Well, you have reserved your right to speak. Would you like to speak now, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank the group for bringing this to discussion, even though there might have been a bit of disarray in it. I'm very glad and pleased to hear that we're all working together on this, because it is quite important that we do get things in a good structural manner. And I'm seconding and will vote for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hobbs. And now we go back to the proposer to have a right of reply. So that'll be Councillor John Halsall to have a right of reply before we go to the vote.
Thank you. It doesn't seem that any speaker has actually addressed the report. They've addressed other things, which is a pity. We as Conservatives have been trying desperately by unilaterally avoiding speeches, by unilaterally avoiding questions, to get council meetings to conclude. And I must say that I agree with Imogen that we just planned to fail in the last constitutional review working group. I think we were happy to talk about it and happy to bring it up again and are happy to meet with the Constitutional Review Working Party to see what we can do. But let me say that it can't be one-sided. It is cleaning up the current processes, not excluding the ruling group from council meetings. So yes, happy to look again, happy to take it to Constitutional Review Working Party. We've done some amendments which are incorporated in this council meeting, like starting off at 7, and there's no report from the companies. So that was a step in the right direction. We just weren't able to make any other progress. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Halsall. So I'm now intending to go to the vote on the recommendations that are set out in the report. But since Councillor Croy has asked for some of the recommendations to be voted on separately, which we will allow, we need to take a vote then of the first group, which is recommendations 1, 3, 5 and 6. Can you make sure all your hands are down, please, to start with? And now, for recommendations 1, 3, 5 and 6, if you wish to vote for, can you use the hands up, please? I looked at them. That is in fact unanimous. Thank you. So the recommendations 1, 3, 5 and 6 are agreed. We now move to the other two, which is recommendations 2 and 4. We'll vote for those together. Could you make sure all your hands are down, please? Oh. Bear with me for a moment. We're doing 2 and 4 together. No, we are doing 2 on its own and 4 on its own. So can you make sure all your hands are down, please?
Thank you, Malcolm.
And now for recommendation 2, if you are in favour and you're going to vote for, please put your hands up now. Okay, hands down. Okay, now we'll go on to the those who are against. If your hands are down and you wish to vote against, please put your hands up now. Oh, you haven't put them down. Sorry, I didn't look at the screen. Can you take all your hands down? I thought I had already asked for that. Sorry. Can you get Councillor Cowan? Yes. So they're all down. If you wish to vote against recommendation 2, use your hands up now. Right, hands down. All hands down. Quick check. Yes. Okay, and the third option here is against. So if you wish to vote against, please, sorry, we've done for and against. I can't read my own printed writing here. If you wish to abstain, can you please put your hands up now? And those that recommendation number 2 is agreed. So we now go to recommendation 4, the last one. So can you put all your hands down again, please? It's a bit like waving this, isn't it? All your hands down. Now, for recommendation 4, if you wish to vote for it, can you please put the hands up now? Okay, put your hands down. And now we're doing the against, I think. So can you, with your hands down, if you are going to vote against, we need all the hands down, please, everybody. Councillor Patman, Councillor Mickelberg. Yes, they all need to be down. Yeah. Right, I forgot which one I'm doing. It's the against. Yes. If you wish to vote against recommendation 4, can you please put your hand up now? Okay, put them all hands down again, please. All of them. I can't see any hands up, so they're down. So now we are going to vote for abstain. If you wish to abstain recommendation 4, please use the hands up to indicate that now. Okay, put the hands down again, please. All of them. Last couple to go, I think. Yes. No, there will be some members who do not have a hands up feature. Can they indicate now? Is anyone not voted here? Okay, fine. So in that case, recommendation 2 is agreed. Thank you. So we've done the 1, 3, 5, 6 and the 2 and the 4. We now move on to the next agenda item, 56, which is the update from the Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee, and it is to be proposed by Councillor Chris Bowring. Councillor Bowring, are you there?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have a seconder as well.
Good. And
Councillor
who's that?
Ross. Councillor Ross, I believe.
Councillor Ross, that's fine.
So if I just make my statement.
You're speaking on his behalf. Yes. So you are proposing, Councillor Bowring. You have a seconder. You can now speak, Councillor Bowring, for up to 3 minutes, starting now.
Sounds like just a minute. Thank you.
It does, doesn't it? No repetition allowed.
Following the council meeting on 6th of July 2020, the Planning Committee undertook discussions to enable all categories of public speaker to directly address the committee. I'm pleased to say that public speaking was fully integrated into the Planning Committee's most recent meeting, held on Wednesday the 9th of September. At the meeting, the committee heard from 3 agents or applicants, 1 residents' association representative, 1 ward member speaking on 2 applications, and a further ward member's statement, which I read out as Vice Chairman of the committee. We welcomed all speaking categories to continue to engage with the committee in line with the registration process as set out within the council's constitution. I've been informed by officers that an initial technical demonstration for a solution to run hybridised meetings using the council chamber was carried out successfully. Moving forwards, officers are planning to carry out a number of internal tests to ensure that the technology is fully operational prior to any public meeting being held. Any hybridised meeting of the planning committee will only be carried out when it is deemed safe for all attendees. This will include a risk assessment being carried out and the cleansing of the council chamber prior to and after the meeting being held. It will be ensured that no committee member, officer or member of the public will be at a disadvantage to be either in attendance virtually or at the council's offices. In addition, it will be each individual's choice as to whether they wish to attend the meeting physically up to the safe and legal limit of persons allowed in the meeting. Any hybridised meetings will only be carried out whilst government guidance and regulations allow. Members will be aware of the government's recent restriction of social gathering to 6 individuals. Meetings above this number can be carried out for business purposes within a COVID-secure workplace. I reiterate to members that a hybridised meeting, planning committee meeting, will only take place when the technology is finalised whilst government regulations allow and when it is deemed safe to do so. The interesting thing about a hybrid meeting is that it's actually more democratic than how the planning committee operated before the pandemic. Members of the planning committee and members of the public would be able to choose whether to attend in person or remotely via Teams. We have also the live streaming facility, which allows the public to watch the meeting as it takes place. I hope, personally, when the pandemic is over, that both of these features can be retained as far as possible. They enhance the democratic process. Unfortunately, none of this is for sure because a second wave of the pandemic may make the hybrid meeting impossible, but we all hope for the best. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baring, for that very clear explanation. Councillor Ross, do you wish to say something now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll reserve my right, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. So does anyone else wish to speak then? Hands up. Use the hand up if you would, please.
I have Malcolm.
I'm just scrolling up and down looking for a hand. I don't have one on my screen here.
Rochelle's got a hand up, Malcolm.
Okay. Rochelle or Rachel, did you say? Rochelle?
Thank you. I think this was way overdue because I believe that what we did was the same thing that could have been done originally. And instead of having written representations, we could have done this when we started out from the pandemic and we started meetings again. But I do applaud the fact that they finally this has actually occurred. Thank you.
Right. Does anyone else wish to speak now?
So I just say I thank Rochelle for her support. She's of course a member of the planning committee, but I think generally it's wise to take these things slowly so we get them right. So I think the progression of what happened on the planning committee since March was done in a sensible way.
Sorry, Councillor Baring, it was meant to be Councillor Ross at this point, but can we go to Councillor Ross to have his
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have very little to say. It seems the best possible way forward at this point. It's something clearly we'll have to keep under review, both for the success of it and what happens in terms of COVID-19 in the area. I do hope that we can get back to normal and see the whites of each other's eyes and those that come to the meetings. And I look forward to that first opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. And now, in fact, according to my notes here of sequences, it'll come back to Councillor Baring to have a right to reply, which I think he just started slightly earlier. Would you like to carry on your right to reply, Councillor Baring?
I was just thanking Rochelle for the point she made in support, and I have nothing else to add. I think the way forward is the right one for the planning committee. Thank you.
Thank you then. So I will now go to the vote. At this point, I'd like to make a request. it may be that the performance, the range or speeds of responses on the communication network isn't as fast as it should be. I don't always see the hands up at the same moment that somebody says, I've got my hands up. It takes a few seconds and it's getting it. But it does get there eventually. I'll just wait a couple of seconds longer, I think. So we're now intended to go to the vote. So if I, bear with me. As before, we'll be using the hands up facility. Can you make sure that your hands are all down, please? Right. Anyone who wishes to vote for this recommendation, can you please use the hands up facility now? Yes, I've got some hands appearing now. Yes, there's a whole stack of them. Bear with me, we're checking them. Right, thank you for that. It is in fact unanimous. Okay, thank you for that. So the update is therefore noted. We now move on to agenda item 57, the member question time. Supplementary questions are allowed. Again, can I just remind you that if you're asking a question, please get to the question as promptly as you can without too much of a preamble. Executive members' responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and members are reminded that supplementary questions must be no longer than 1 minute as well. So at this point, I can now invite Councillor Frewein to ask her question of Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Schools in the borough have been in unprecedented turmoil due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This has not been helped by chaotic decision-making by the government, which has resulted in mixed messages and complete changes of mind on when children would be returning to school, what schools should do to accommodate them, and exam results. This turmoil is likely to continue for some time. We may have future local hotspots which require schools to be closed temporarily, for example. Many activities which have previously been taken for granted will be more difficult, more expensive, or impossible to deliver. And these difficulties even extend to ensuring children can travel to school safely. We also have to deal with further consequences of what has already happened. Children taking public exams next year have had their learning disrupted. Those intending to go to university may not have the expected range of places available to them. And we have yet to see what the impact of lockdown has been on children's mental health and on other issues which affect them, such as domestic violence and families with significantly reduced incomes as a result of job loss or pay reductions. What is the council going to do to support schools, staff, pupils and parents during this academic year to minimise the detrimental impact of these issues on them?
Thank you for your question. The last academic year has been incredibly challenging for all schools, including their staff, students and parents. However, Wokingham has had some of the best performance in respect of maintaining school opening and attendance from March 2020, when schools were asked to close to most students. We have continued to work with schools and academies throughout the pandemic, providing advice, guidance and support in the light of national guidance as well as local learning. This has included daily communication to all school, to their senior leaders and directors and stakeholders, and bespoke responses where there has been an issue or concern related to potential outbreaks. We have worked closely with the Department for Education to inform and fully understand national policy in the changing context to which you refer, and we have had a close relationship with public health in the development and the management of the outbreak management plan, which has specific reference to schools and settings. Now, going forward, we will continue to engage with schools on all coronavirus-related issues. And we will be supporting them on the usage of the catch-up premium and national tutoring scheme, which was announced by the government in July. We will be making best use of the additional resources we will be receiving in respect of supporting children and young people's mental health and well-being, and reorganizing service delivery to support children back to school and back to class-based learning. And I like to remind that in July we started a free online counseling service for 11 to 18-year-olds. It's emotional support through digital counseling, and there is no referral, no waiting list, etc.
Okay.
It's open 7 days a week and 365 days a year.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And thank you for that answer, Corinne. As indicated in the question and in your answer, the impact of the pandemic on children's mental health is a big concern. What steps are you taking to make sure that child and adolescent mental health services have sufficient capacity to meet the likely need?
Well, as you are aware, when it comes to CAMS, there is a waiting list. There's always been a waiting list, and it looks like it's going to continue to be a waiting list. So that's why I'm very pleased that we have this now free online counseling service. So we are hoping that this will be something that children and young adults will be using. And of course, should it turn out that this problem is bigger than we have been notified of so far, we need to look into further measures to help them.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Sorry to cut you off. We need to get some responses within the time limits. We now move on very quickly, please, to Councillor Rochelle Shepherd-Ubey to ask her question of Pauline Jorgensen. And if you can keep the
Okay, Pauline. What will be the effect of the proposed houses in Winnish Farm from the local plan update and the extra but unmentioned houses at the new Senn School on the traffic modelling of the new Winnish Relief Road roundabout?
Thank you for the question, Rochelle. This slides neatly in the gap in between highways and planning. So I'll give you an attempt at an answer, and I'm sure you might have a supplementary. The consultation draft of the local plan update of February 2020 proposes the allocation of land at Winnish Farm for around 250 new homes. The proposed number of new homes was adjusted downwards to account for a potential new Senn School and the traffic it would create. Responses to the draft local plan update are currently being reviewed and analysed. As part of that draft local plan update, a supporting transport assessment was produced and is available on the council website. Assessment looks at all the junctions across the borough and how they would be impacted under various development scenarios. The assessment considered both the new homes and the delivery of the Senn School in Winnish Farm. The assessment shows that Woodward Close Junction would operate at a level below which its capacity is considered to become a concern. However, as with all proposed sites in the draft local plan update, the impact and sustainability of any development will be further considered as the local plan update progresses. More detailed assessment would also be required as part of the process for determining any subsequent planning application. This would include specific junction software being used. It's anticipated a detailed application for the proposed Senn School will be submitted in January 2021. A separate outline planning application for housing on the remaining council-owned land is likely to be submitted early in 2021 as well. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Pauline. Rochelle, do you have a quick supplementary?
A real quick one.
Yeah.
Since this nearly triples the number of houses coming out of Woodward Close, which was definitely not included in the planning because the planning was all done several years ago, and all of the updates for that were done several years ago. It hasn't been added at all. So what are you planning to do to help?
I think I've answered that question already, Rochelle.
This
isn't the end of the process. The junction traffic will be assessed again during the detailed planning application and during the local plan update as it progresses. So this isn't the final view of the position.
Thank you,
being
Pauline.
built now.
Right. So can I move on now, please, to Councillor Paul Fishwick to ask his question of Pauline Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The winter maintenance plan. under 2.11, the council does not promote the use of bicycles during periods of prolonged hazardous conditions, with the exception of shared carriageway, cycleway routes on a primary or secondary salting route. Shared footway, cycleway and remote cycleway networks are not salted when hard frost, ice or prolonged hazardous conditions are forecast. With the active travel agenda and more walking and cycling being promoted, will Wokingham Borough Council be reviewing this policy to add these cycle routes on a priority basis? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Paul. I think you make a good point. There is certainly a shift within government and in the transport field towards encouraging more active travel. And Wokingham Borough Council has been supportive of this agenda with the programme of greenways, the A39 cycleway and the work of the award-winning My Journey team. The council is in the process of producing a new local transport plan, which will no doubt encompass new active travel measures and an increased reliance on cycling, particularly for the movement of people throughout the borough. We will be reviewing our approach to winter maintenance and cycle routes, and we'll do that before this winter in order to identify key commuting routes that would benefit from being prioritised for winter maintenance. So thank you for raising the issue. It's also worth noting that the council has already purchased 10 small push-along gritters, which are capable of undertaking additional grifting in pedestrian areas and cycleways, and areas such as outside schools or shopping centres in the event of prolonged bad weather.
Councillor Fishwick, do you have a quick supplementary at all?
If Wokingham Borough Council are really serious about active travel agenda, there is an urgent need to ensure these walking and cycling routes are included at the very first opportunity, so that this sustainable mode of transport will not be lost. Will the executive member please confirm that they will definitely be included in the 2020-21 winter maintenance plan? Thank you.
Maybe you didn't hear my answer properly, Paul. I did say that they will be included, and we'll review the key routes and make sure that they're included.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. And now Councillor Carl Doran to ask his question of Councillor John Halsall, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On August the 27th, an article by you, Councillor Halsall, referring to the government's proposed planning reforms, was published on the Conservative Home website. In the article, you say this: the Cummings affair, Robert Jenrick, coronavirus, Scotland, and school results have hugely dented us Tories. We will do badly in May unless the government quickly learns from its mistakes. So my question is, do you think the government will learn from its mistakes, specifically these planning reforms, which so affect us all?
Thank you very much, Carl. As you know, the government is consulting on changes to the planning system, and whilst I can't presume to know how it will respond to the consultation, I would encourage all of you to familiarise themselves with the consultations and make their views known by contacting your MP, contacting the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, visiting the Council's website for more information and a copy of the Council's draft response. More information and an online petition is available at www.enoughisenough.org. And to take part in the government's consultation directly. As you know, I have been actively campaigning against the white paper, and I've worked pretty much continuously since early August to advise as many councillors, residents and MPs as I possibly could, together with stunts and articles in media. Residents and councillors' clear support will help me a great deal.
Thank you. I'm definitely opposed to these planning reforms in their entirety. So let's hope what you spoke to me the other day saying you'd spoken to Conservative ministers and MPs, and I hope what you've heard from them isn't limited and specific, shall we say. But anyway, in the same article, you proposed your own manifesto for the planning system. It included a policy which I fully agree with, which said removal of developers' ability to avoid obligation through viability. I wonder if you're aware that a local developer recently received planning permission for a development of 55 1- and 2-bedroom flats in Wokingham town centre, where they pleaded on the basis of viability that they should supply absolutely zero affordable housing. That local developer was Wokingham Borough Council. I think I referred to this decision at Planning Committee as morally repugnant, and I still feel that. So my question is, will you ensure that this council sets a clear example, rectifies this mistake, and puts affordable housing in this WBC owned and built development?
I honestly can't talk about a specific planning application, and first of all, I don't know about it in detail, and I'm not sure at what stage in the process it is. So it would be wrong for me to do so. But let me assure you that our core strategy, which has now been in existence for 10 years, has a 35% affordable housing requirement. We gave a commitment, this administration, to build social houses and, for want of a better word, council homes. We gave a commitment to build 1,000 in 4 years. We look as if we're going to better that. And yes, we are very committed to providing homes which people can afford to buy on their incomes or rent.
Right, thank you. Okay, Councillor Rachel Burgess next, please, to ask her a question of Councillor Daniel Sargent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our care leavers face significant challenges which are currently exacerbated by COVID-19. When they move into their own accommodation and have to manage their own budget, they can often find themselves struggling to cope with their personal finances. Since 2018, the council has been legally obliged to support care leavers up to the age of 25. As corporate parents for these care leavers, we should all be ensuring that they have the same chances as we would want for our own children. Yet in Wokingham, these same care leavers currently have to pay council tax as soon as they turn 21, on top of learning how to manage a household, a job or studies and other bills, and often without the support of family or other networks. We know that council tax debt can be particularly daunting for care leavers and can escalate quickly. Contrast this with young people who are not care leavers, who will often have parents to support them at this age and even house them so they have no council tax to pay. The cost of exemption is not material for this council, so when will Wokingham do the right thing, as many other councils have done, and make care leavers exempt from paying council tax until they turn 25?
Councillor Sargent.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Burgess. As you'll be aware, the council finds itself in extremely challenging financial circumstances as a result of COVID-19. We already have an in-year overspend of approximately £4 million, and we have considerable financial impact flowing into next year in relation to COVID-19 alone. These include valuable lost income that we use to fund services and higher costs of care arising from isolation and lockdown. Indeed, as I'm sure you're aware, councils up and down the country faced with similar issues, having to make some very stark choices. We will, of course, continue with our approach during such challenging times of targeting our very limited resources into the areas of most need and in delivering the key priority investments for our community. On the 29th of March 2018, it was agreed at the executive meeting that all Wokingham care leavers up to the age of 21 would be exempt from council tax. Furthermore, I'm aware that the Corporate Parenting Board has undertaken work to explore the possibility of extending that exemption up to the age of 25. This proposal would obviously come at a cost and will need to be considered along with all other competing priorities across the council in arriving at another balanced budget. This process of setting up next year's MTFP is of course set in the stark financial context I described earlier. It would therefore be irresponsible of me to make any commitments at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Burgess, do you have a quick supplementary?
I do. I mean, I obviously understand the impact on the council's finances at the moment, but the values involved are actually immaterial. It's actually quite a small cohort. But obviously for those individuals, it can be completely life-changing. So I just don't know why we can't just do the right thing and just do it now. Why is that? That's my question. Why can't we just do it now?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And of course, you know, all the councils have very serious corporate parenting responsibilities, and it's at the front of all our minds. But I think, particularly in the financial situation we're in right now, which is pretty unique, we need to be very disciplined with the finances, make sure we're going through the same robust budgeting process that we always do. and now's not the time to be messing around with that, to be honest. So I take your point on board, but I think we need to be quite hot on the financials, particularly at this time.
Yes, sorry, I muted myself there. Final question here is Councillor Caroline Smith to ask her a question of Ulla Corinne Clark, please.
Thank you. Good evening. With the problems of social distancing at the forest schools, are the free school meals provided going to be a hot meal?
Right. I could hear you very badly there, but I think I understand what you are saying.
Okay.
At the present time, schools are focusing on securing their provision that enables all pupils to make the safest possible return to school. And this involves implementing many operational changes, including the use of shared spaces and teaching arrangements. Schools and catering providers are having to get used to the new ways the schools have to operate in. And for some schools, having large groups in dining halls is unsafe. And delivering hot meals to classroom is a health and safety risk. So as a result, schools are in discussion with their catering providers about the most effective way of providing opportunity for children to access the school lunches. This may mean at this time that for some schools, the offer continues to be a sandwich style option, as has been the case throughout the pandemic. Each school will determine its own arrangements for the provision of school meals, and some choose to purchase through the contract held by the council with Caterlink. We recognise that for many children, access to a hot meal is important, and we are working with Caterlink to ensure a return to hot meal provision as soon as possible and not later than October half term.
Thank you. Could I ask, do you have another quick supplementary, Councillor Caroline?
I probably have a quick.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I'll try again. Do we expect a higher uptake of free school meals with the economic decline? And do we have enough in the budget to cover any increase?
Could you please repeat that? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'll try again. Do we expect a higher uptake of free school meals with the economic decline? And do we have enough in the budget to cover this increase?
Normally, it's about 7% of the children in the borough who have free school meals. And I don't have any information if this has increased or not. I think the schools haven't submitted any information about this to the council. I will ask tomorrow if we have any information coming in about it or any indication that there will be a higher uptake.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we had some communication problems there on the voice and the sound, but that is the end of the question session. Then we now move on to agenda item 58, which is the minutes of committee meetings and ward matters. There will be no supplementaries in this section. If anyone wishes to ask a question, could you please let me know using the hands up feature? Yes, several hands up here. So going down the list in order, then the first hand up is Councillor Gary Cowan.
Thank you, Malcolm. Councillor Halsall earlier in the meeting challenged the Lib Dems' incompetence in financial matters when debating Treasury management by them not being able to identify specific areas in the report. Yet in today's Wokingham paper on page 9, he rightly encourages all of us to join his challenge of the 1,635 hours a year his Conservative government proposed for Wokingham, but he fails to give any indication as to what the right number might be for Wokingham. As he well knows, just saying no is not good enough, not forgetting flagship Graiseley 15,000. could he be considered just as incompetent on housing as he suggests the Lib Dems on finances are, if he cannot say how many houses a year is right for Wokingham? Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment is Councillor Andrew Mickelberg, please.
Sorry, do you want me to reply to that, Malcolm? Mr.
Oh,
Mayor?
yes, nothing was happening, that's why. Sorry. Yes, Councillor Halsall. Yes, please answer.
It was an extraordinary speech, which really didn't contain a coherent question. It appears that the question invites me to state a number. The current number is the one he set in the core strategy, which has been modified by the change in standard method, which happened in 2018. We had a referendum on housing numbers some time ago, and we know that the residents would like...
There was no referendum on the housing numbers.
I'm not sure that you're entitled to join in, Andy.
There's no referendum.
And my view is not dissimilar to Gary's view when he published the core strategy.
Thank you. Right. The next hand up is Councillor Andrew Mickelberg. If we can be fairly brief on some of these, please, so we can get through a few of them.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mayor. My question is for the Executive Member for Highways. On the 28th of August, a cyclist was airlifted to hospital following a serious accident at the Cutbush Lane, Carshalton Way roundabout in Hawkton Ward. For years, numerous requests have been made prior to this latest accident for safety improvements at this dangerous location. On the 3rd and 15th of this month, I emailed officers to ask that this site be visited as a matter of urgency and a plan devised to improve safety. You were copied into both emails. I have not received any responses. Could you please commit to getting this matter properly addressed without further delay? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't respond to emails I've copied into if they're addressed to somebody else. I let somebody else who you're addressing the emails to actually respond. But however, I have already talked to Highways about this. I investigated some other opportunities for measures to reduce the speed, and I've certainly asked them to go and have a look at the vegetation and the sight lines on Cutbush Lane to make sure that you can see people coming out of Cutbush Lane and going on to Meldreth and Carshalton. So I have actually taken action, but I don't generally respond to emails that I'm copied into. Otherwise, I would be sending emails all night.
Thank you. The next hand up is Councillor Stephen Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is also for Pauline. I hope it's going to be fairly easy for her to answer. Will she meet with me to discuss how we may progress some ideas I have on highway improvements that would increase public safety at the Twyford Village crossroads?
I've already done that one, Stephen, I think last year, and I'd be happy to do further.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next hand up then is Councillor Laura Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is also to the Executive Member for Highways. So residents on Larch Drive have told me that a number of elderly people have fallen over near the front of the opening of the road because there's a tree there and its tree roots have buckled the pavement and there have been some really nasty falls there. Can you let me know what the Highways Department can do to help solve the situation and help the residents?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Laura, and thank you for the picture you sent me as well. As you say, the tree roots are pushing tarmac up and making that side of the path rather uneven. I've asked the highways inspectors to go out and look at that site. They went out yesterday. I chased them again today to see what the report is back. I haven't got any information yet, but when I do get it, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand in the air is Councillor Shirley Boyd. Shirley Boyd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The A3290 flyover in Culver Lane has long been blighted by graffiti. It is an eyesore, but WBC's policy on graffiti allows the graffiti to remain. Recently, a resident complained about various offensive words on some of the columns. This resulted in WBC sending out an operative who simply painted over the offending words, leaving the rest of the graffiti in place. The resident is appalled that the rest of the graffiti was ignored and that this opportunity to improve our area was not taken up. I would like to ask on their behalf, how much more would it have cost to do the job properly?
Any response to that?
I think that one's for Parry. It's graffiti.
Is Parry here?
Yes. Thank you for that question. I will look at it tomorrow. I'll speak to Claire Lawrence and her team, and I'll make sure something's done about it, but I don't know the exact cost, but I will find out, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Councillor Rochelle Shepherd-Dubay, next please, very quickly.
Going to be Parry again, I'm afraid. Quickly, Winnish Meadows Park, which is at Wokingham Borough Park. There are two trails that are blocked by fallen trees. I requested the trees be removed twice. Nothing's been done. The Millennium Oak has also been cut down and never replaced. One of these three things going to be fixed.
Well, thank you very much for Michelle for bringing that to my attention. Once again, I shall be speaking to the officers tomorrow and get something done about it.
And please give me an update.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next hand in the air is Councillor Daniel Sargent. If you'd like to speak, please. Oh,
thank you. Yes,
sorry, it's Imogen. Sorry, it's Imogen.
Okay, I'll hold fire.
Oh, I get to speak. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay, my question is, within my ward, Old Forest Road has been closed until spring for the building of the Northern Distributor Road. This has effectively blocked off access to the new park for most of the residents in that area. The only way for residents of Ashton Road, Lowther Road, Wayside and Lenham Close to access the park is to take a very long circuitous route, walking round down to Embrook Road, Toutley Road, Queen's Road, and which effectively makes this park inaccessible for many of our residents. Please can we get some support from Woking Borough Council with the addition of a pedestrian route across the Embrook to allow access to continue during these works?
I think that will be me again. I think.
I'm not sure. No, I think it's Pauline because it's a highways issue, isn't it? But
okay.
I don't think it is actually, but.
If it's public rights of way, then it will be me. But
public rights of way, it's Parry. But I'm happy to work with Parry and see if we can find some sort of solution.
Yeah,
bearing in mind how long the roadworks have got to continue for. That's the other thing.
Indeed, if it was a couple of weeks, it would be fine, but it's not. It's months. Thank you.
We'll work between us to sort that out.
Okay, thank you. So now we do move down to Councillor Daniel Sargent, please.
Thank you. Yes, in the Cherrymore Hill area of my ward, Parry, residents have raised with me that there's a number of large oak trees which they think are in ill health and posing a safety issue. Now, officers have been out and checked them over, claimed all is well. But since then, there's a large bough that's fallen in a play park, which thankfully didn't result in any injuries. But my question is to you: can we get a second opinion from officers on these oak trees, particularly the ones near the play park? Thank you.
Daniel, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I will be speaking to the trees department tomorrow, and I'm very sorry to hear that the unfortunate break of the limb from a tree which has fallen down, and that's very unfortunate. And I'm pleased that nobody was hurt. But I'll be on to the officers tomorrow to have another inspection, because that Cherrymore Hill was inspected only recently, but we need to be very vigilant and inspect every tree for any other possible loose limbs, and from a safety point of view, I'll be asking them to have another very, very thorough look tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Next hand in the air is Councillor Caroline Smith, please.
Good evening. My question's for the Executive Member of Highways. Because the junction of Falstaff Avenue and Harcourt Drive has created a very dangerous situation
for pedestrians, cyclists and drivers. Since at least October 2018, Lib Dem councillors have sought to extend yellow lines at this location. Eventually, on the 11th of February, you reviewed and approved an IEMD to introduce parking restrictions in this area. On the 23rd of August, you reported the lines should be painted in the week commencing the 31st of August. Why are these lines still not painted, and when will this be finally dealt with, please?
Thank you for the question, Caroline. I've been asking exactly the same question myself. We've had a problem with actually getting line painting gangs out because of COVID. For some reason, although we've managed to get tarmac for filling holes, it's been very difficult to get lines painted. But I'm already on that case, and I've asked the same question myself.
Thank you.
Hello, is anybody there?
Has anything happened to Malcolm?
I can hear everybody else.
I can't hear Malcolm, and I think that's the problem at the moment.
Councillor David Hare is what I said. So, Councillor David Hare, if you're there, it's your turn. Councillor Hare?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Oh, right.
Thank you. The footbridge beside Early Station is in urgent need of repair. When this happens, and please don't leave it too long so the footbridge is closed before it's needed, please will you insert a ramped offshoot from the footbridge to the London-bound platform of Early Station so that people unable to negotiate stairs due to disability or buggies can access the trains to and from Early Station.
Sorry, David, I didn't quite catch that. I think it was for me.
Yes, sorry, I should have said so. The footbridge beside Early Station is urgently need of repair, as I'm sure you know. When this is done, please will you insert a ramped offshoot from the footbridge to the London-bound platform of Early Station so that people unable to negotiate stairs can access the trains to and from the station.
I've actually talked to, although I must point out, David, this isn't in your ward. However, I have already talked to the railway about disability access for Early Station. I talked to them about Early and Winnersh, actually, and Winnersh Triangle. Unfortunately, the platform is not wide enough for wheelchair access. So I've asked them to go away and look at what they can do in Early Station to improve the disabled access there already. I met them a few weeks ago and had a good talk to them about what all the disabled access opportunities were. But Malcolm, I think we should be only asking questions in this time about
yes, it is under the heading of Ward Matters, as I did announce at the beginning. So, but that's dealt with now, but please note for future reference. The next person on the list.
The station that serves his ward, for goodness sake.
He didn't say that.
Well, it is. That's what I said. I said it's in Early, and I
think you might find most of your residents use Winnersh Triangle, but anyway.
Okay, so the next person to speak on the list is Councillor Tahir Maher.
Hello, my question is for Executive Member for Highways. I have logged what I and a number of residents consider to be an issue with potholes in Betchworth Avenue in Maiden Early. I was informed that the potholes didn't warrant corrective action. I understand that the engineers use the UK pavement management system to prioritise maintenance. I accepted their ruling, but I didn't agree with it. So I waited a while, but on a recent inspection, several potholes had actually been filled. The entrance to Betchworth Avenue from Wilderness Road is peppered with a series of potholes across both lanes for about 200 yards. I invite you to visit Betchworth Avenue to see for yourself and agree with me that all the potholes need an urgent and immediate repair. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Tahir. Yeah, I've visited many potholes in my time, and I'm very happy to go and visit the one in Betchworth Avenue, or the ones in Betchworth Avenue as well. I would urge anybody who sees potholes to report them online. That we have a new jet patcher which does temporary repairs to potholes, which is actually very effective, and that certainly sorts out any safety issues before proper maintenance can take place. So please, if you see any, report them online. They go straight to Volkers, and Volkers will deal with them quite quickly, especially if they're a safety issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next one quickly is Councillor Rachel Bishop Firth.
Thank you very much. Ellenbrook residents, including myself, bridges over Townhouse Crossing since 2016. The current bridges are eyesores and cannot be used by anybody with a pram, wheelchair or bike. The temporary bridge is so steep, you need to be reasonably fit to tackle it on foot. They are not compliant with the disability access requirements of the Equalities Act and are a barrier for people trying to access the town. Different members of the executive have assured us for years that the council are working with Network Rail to get a step-free bridge installed. At one stage, these members were even talking about contributing SIL money. What pressure is this council exerting on Network Rail to ensure this crossing of the railway is compliant with the Equalities Act for its residents as a matter of urgency?
Yes, Pauline.
Yeah, thank you, Rochelle. I need to give you a written answer to this. It's a bit too detailed for a ward matter, I think. So if you could bear with me, I'll get you a written answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's we've run out of time now on the end of the questions. Well, if it's very quick, then we have one more from Councillor Clive Jones, but very quickly, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question is for either Gregor Murray or Wayne Smith. A Hawkton resident recently visited Cornwall and saw solar panels that were the size of small roof tiles on some new properties. When looking at updating the Borough Design Guide, can we include a requirement for developers to use these small solar panel roof tiles when approving developments in Wokingham?
I'll start on that one, Clive, actually. So it's a really great piece of technology. I've seen it a couple of times now, shown to me by people on Facebook and a couple of other places. I've been talking to an organisation called the Active Building Centre, who I'm trying to get their leadership to come along and talk at the next cross-party working group on climate emergency. They're doing some absolutely fantastic work in terms of retrofitting houses and also how to design houses going forward to make them carbon neutral or even carbon positive.
Right, thank you. That's the end of the question session
I'd
now.
certainly look into it, and I'm sure Wayne has an opinion as well.
Mr. Mayor, could I?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, hello.
Hello. Yes, we've reached the end of the question time. Perhaps you didn't hear me. We've reached the end of the question time. We're now moving on to the next item, which is agenda item 59, statements by the leader, executive members and deputy executive members. And I understand that Councillor John Halsall wishes to have his time to speak extended to 10 minutes and the time for statements extended to 25 minutes. So could Councillor John Halsall now speak, please?
I'd like to...
But do you have a seconder, firstly?
Yes, Councillor Bowring.
Thank you.
I'd like to invocate the rule 4.2.12Q to allow myself to speak for 10 minutes and extending the item for executive statements to 25 minutes, please.
Right. So can we now vote on the extension, please? Can you make sure all your hands are down? All of them. Councillor Conway, yours is up in the air, right?
That's because I wanted to ask a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, if we're to agree to this, are we in the position where the executive members, or at least the leader of the council, might allow the leader of the opposition to also make a brief statement?
Councillor Halsall, do you have a response to that? Councillor Halsall? Yeah, Councillor Halsall, I think you may be on mute.
I'm not aware of this, and I've no idea what the leader of the opposition might want to say, and it would be quite completely improper. So the answer's no.
Right. So we go to the vote then. And I understand this would be just for this evening's meeting anyway. It's not an ongoing thing. So it's a once off. So I'm now going to go to the vote. If all the hands can be down, please. And when the hands are down, I'm going to ask anyone who wishes to vote for this, please use the hands up feature now. Okay. Yeah. Right. So if all the hands take them down, please. Can you take all the hands down? They're going down slowly. Still a couple there. They look like they're all down. So we now move on to the second option, which is all those who wish to vote against. Please use the hands up feature now.
Oh, Emma.
We're just counting them now. Back in a moment. Right, that is agreed then. So,
please note, Mr. Mayor, your comments about this being a one-off. I hope it is not a repeated one-off. This is Lindsay speaking.
Yes. I don't know whether Councillor Halsall wishes to say anything on that. I think it is just a one-off.
So does everybody, Lindsay. I'm
happy to reply to that. It's never been asked for before.
Right.
So, good evening, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I take pleasure announcing that Charlotte Haytham-Taylor will chair the Arts and Council Working Group in the future. Wokingham Borough Council and Wokingham Borough is facing an existential threat. I do not use those words lightly. The beautiful borough that is my honour to serve could very soon be no more if we do not stop the government's plans to inflict an avalanche of housing development upon us. The innocent sounding but deeply pernicious changes to the current planning system consultation ends in just 2 weeks. This consultation was launched in almost total secrecy during the school summer holidays, when the nation was focused on GCSEs, A-levels, lockdowns and quarantines. It was also launched alongside a far more heralded consultation called Planning for the Future, which has generated debate and notoriety, which is in fact the smokescreen, as it is only a green paper, a set of ideas that may or may not become law at some point in the future. The changes to the planning system, on the other hand, requires no change to the law and could be enacted almost immediately after the consultation ends, with just a minister's signature. And yet its ramifications will be felt in our borough and many others across the country forevermore. We must be clear what is at stake. In just 2 weeks' time, at the stroke of the Secretary of State Robert Jenrick's pen, we could be condemned to face 1635 new houses being built in the borough each year. That's a town the size of Wokingham in less than a decade. This would come with less affordable housing because fewer developments would be required to provide it. There would be no appeal, no further debate. 2 weeks, that's all we've got. Let me paint you a picture of the dystopian future. Could whoever's on please mute their... there's a lot of feedback. Let me paint you a picture of this dystopian future. Our levels of congestion would be intolerable. Access to medical services, schools and other basic services would be stretched to bursting point. We would see the green of the borough disappear. This level of development would see an increase of just short of 25% in 10 years, which would approximate to 15% of the landmass. The plan-led development, which has been at the core of the Council's strategy for a sustainable future, would be imperilled by the lack of defendable 5-year land supply, which would need to be in the region of 10,000 to discourage speculative land promoters. This would further imperil the infrastructure funded by the developers. The government says all this destruction is necessary to get the economy going and prevent NIMBYs blocking necessary housing. But that is a false position. We have proved with our carefully planned development in recent years that there is an alternative to both the government's developers' charter and just say no attitude. We are not the NIMBYs of the government propaganda. We believe in building the homes that people need, in providing council housing and in genuinely affordable homes for all. But we do not believe in and will never accept the imposition of a concrete swamp across our fields and villages. Since early August, I've been working ceaselessly to ensure that our cause gains the widest publicity. I've used any and every stunt to gain notoriety. All our MPs have been hugely supportive. I've spoken to huge numbers of council leaders and members of parliament, probably in the hundreds now of each. I have undertaken an influential debate with England's leading planning barrister, Chris Katowski, who was part of the authorship for Planning for the Future white paper. Anybody who wishes to see it and has not, please contact me. I've used any and every stunt to gain notoriety, as I said. Conservative Home helped, as did the Daily Mail. I've led the Unitary Council Network's response and that of the South East strategic leaders. It has been a little like chucking mud at a wall unceasingly in the hope that some sticks. I've talked to Kent County Council. I've talked to all the councillors in the west of England. I'm delighted that finally I seem to have broken through and had a long, productive conversation with Robert Jenrick on Friday last. I used the opportunity to invite him to the borough, which he was pleased to accept. However, that's only the beginning, the end of the beginning, and it is important that now he is aware of the issue, he becomes aware of the strength of the feeling in the borough. We have appealed to all residents to write to their MP, the Secretary of State, sign up to the petition and respond to the consultation. And I'm urging everybody to join me in that campaign. Time is running out, but hope is not lost. Please take action today. We are facing another threat which is equally serious and whose effects may be devastating. We are continuing to face coronavirus. Initially, we hoped that it would be short term and then a solution would be found. This is far from the case. During the emergency, we should remember that though our cases have been low, some have very sadly died and others have been very ill. We changed the way we worked, supporting all our residents and ensured that the services ran as normal as far as possible. Whilst this was expensive financially, it was eminently doable in the short term, and I believe we did the right thing. We are now having to face both ways. We now know that there is no short-term fix. Much of that which we did during the height of the crisis, we shall need to continue to do. We have returned with few exceptions to delivering all our services. But, and it is a big but, the financial environment is very strained. Not only do we have to recover the cost of what we did earlier in the year, but from a lower income base than we had in the past, but also we have to confront the cost of expanded services. An example is the expected income from leisure services and car parking is very much lower. On the cost side, we're looking after more of the vulnerable children and adults, and the cost of care homes has increased. So in confronting 2021-22, we'll have to be more imaginative and more commercial. We may not be able to achieve all the aspirations that we have had in the short term and delay implementation of projects. This will be the debate of many months to come, and it is somewhat dependent upon the length of the emergency and the extent of government intervention. And lastly, please follow the government's guidelines for physical hygiene, i.e. wash your hands, social distancing at all times, cover your face when required to. It saves lives. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Have the local elections
sorry.
started? Have the local elections started.
Hello? Yes, thank you, Councillor Halsall. Does anyone else wish to make a statement? If so, could you please let me know by using the hands up feature?
Yes, please, Malcolm.
Thank you. Councillor Jorgensen, would you like to speak next? Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll get my camera off. I'll be as brief as I can. I haven't given an update on highways for a while, so I thought it would be useful. The highways team have been busy progressing the borough's new road schemes, taking advantage of COVID lockdown when roads were quieter to resurface busy areas such as the A4, the Showcase Roundabout and Molly Miller's Lane. The new Arborfield Cross Relief Road is progressing well and we look forward to opening it at the end of October. The new London Road Cycleway in Woking will also be completed by the end of October. This cycleway is designed for young cyclists to use either the road or to considerately share the new wide pavement depending on their confidence, cycling ability and of course the speed they want to travel at. Works for the North Woking Distributor Road connecting Old Forest Road to Reading Road have commenced, and major investment is underway in high-rise maintenance with a doubling of the budget this year to 8 million. Over 100 roads are earmarked for resurfacing. We've done quite a lot of micro asphalt already, but the plain and inlay resurfacing schemes dealing with the worst roads will start soon, and the long-awaited resurfacing at the top of Hartsbourne Road will start around the 19th of October. I'm very keen to return Woking Town to as near normal as possible, following the COVID-related restrictions introduced when shops first reopened on the 15th of June. The aim is to assist business and also make it easier for pedestrians to cross the road and taxis to operate. Following conversations with local shopkeepers arranged by local town councillors Julian McGee-Sumner and Phil Cunnington, and several meetings with shopkeepers' representatives and the town council, I'm pleased to advise that following the successful removal of barriers in Rectory Road and Wiltshire Road, we've agreed that COVID barriers at the northern side of Broad Street from NatWest Bank will be removed this weekend, restoring the taxi rank. If this is successful, we've scheduled removal of all the remaining barriers on the weekend of the 26th, 27th. At the request of the Town Council and the traders' representatives, the barriers on the post office side of the road will not be removed until the 26th, 27th either. We will also be adding some more signage to remind people to socially distance and also to please ask them to support local businesses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Does anyone else wish to make a statement? And looking down my list, it's Councillor Charles Margetts. Councillor Margetts.
Thank you. I wanted to briefly update members on a few things that are going on in terms of public health. First of all, the current situation with COVID-19. Cases remain low in Wokingham as things stand currently. Our track and trace figure is running at nearly 90%, which is a reflection of the hard work that's going on to keep things this way. Wokingham currently is a very low risk area for COVID, and everyone is working very hard to keep it that way. This on a background when schools have gone back, and we're trying very hard to keep the message going out about following the government advice, as Councillor Halsall mentioned. Members will be aware of the NHS Track and Trace app, which is now live from September the 24th. This has been months of work to get this ready. We've looked at all the other apps on the market, basically, and are convinced this is by far the best one. I'd encourage all members, residents to adopt it, and all local businesses. It's a key part of how we fight COVID. As the time has gone on, we're obviously changing our response to COVID in the community. We'll see shortly, in a few weeks, we'll be launching what we call the Community Response Part 2, which was very much adapting to the changing situation, focusing on mental health, people who are stuck at home, who are too scared to come out and need support, focusing on loneliness, and also focusing on those who may sadly be about to become unemployed and providing them with the support and advice they need. I wanted to also talk about testing, which has been much in the news recently. The national situation with the shortage of lab capacity is obviously very concerning. I can reassure everybody that as things stand today, our care homes are safe and have enough testing, and the situation there is being continually monitored. We've been working very hard to get some progress with this. Myself, Councillor Halsall and Councillor Kaiser had attended a meeting with John Redwood, James Sunderland and Theresa May online to lobby forcefully of our unhappiness with the situation and to get them to actually work with us to resolve it. I know James Sunderland had a meeting on our behalf with the Health Minister yesterday to raise these issues. I'm pleased to advise we have secured extra testing from our health partners, which will basically be available for key workers as and when we need. I would say we're keen to go further to make sure all the needy, the vulnerable, and the key workers in Wokingham are supported. In April, when central government could not provide PPE, we mounted a public appeal and private procurement to secure enough PPE to keep our key workers going, to keep our care homes safe. In May, when Royal Berks discharges, basically when the Royal Berks was discharging patients with COVID into our care homes without tests, we broke central government advice, refused discharges to keep our community safe until basically testing could be put in place. Today, central government can't provide enough testing. We've secured extra testing for key workers from our health partners already, and we're in the process of procuring further private testing to ensure all our key workers, people dealing with social workers, dealing with the aged and vulnerable, education key workers as well, have access to testing, and we have provision for possible emergencies that may come down the road. So again, we're trying to be proactive, positive, and do everything we can to keep our residents safe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Margate. We then move on to Councillor Ullacorin-Clark, please, for a report.
Thank you very much. The COVID restrictions over recent months have posed unprecedented challenges to children's services in Wokingham. I am proud to say that our dedicated staff have continued to work tirelessly to support children, young people and schools throughout this crisis. The Learning, Achievement and Partnerships Service has worked closely with schools to ensure their safe opening this term, supporting work with individual parents and carers to allay their fears, and securing safe and sufficient school transport, including additional buses, taxis and routes to support existing arrangements. We are also helping schools to make the best use of the Catch-Up Premium and National Tutoring Programme announced by the government in July, which is designed to help children make up for the lost teaching time they have experienced. This has been a tough year for school leavers, but I am delighted to tell you that 4 of our children in care and care leavers have been offered places at university to start this year. In social care, arrangements were swiftly put in place at the beginning of the lockdown to ensure the most vulnerable children continued to be seen face to face, using appropriate personal protective equipment. Children received regular contact through innovative use of virtual technology, something which has not been replicated in other authorities. Our Family Resource Centre has remained open throughout, offering safe opportunities for parents to spend time with their children, and the Bridges Short Breaks Centre has continued to offer day and overnight respite visits for disabled children. Our other centres are now starting to reopen with appropriate safety measures in place. We have had many compliments from parents, foster carers and young people on our response to the COVID restrictions and the support they have received. And I'm sure you will join me in thanking our staff for their incredible continuing dedication and hard work in these most difficult circumstances. Our new specialist Compass team, working intensively with children whose placements are at risk of breakdown or who are at risk of coming into care, is now fully recruited too, and already supporting 9 young people. And 4 new practice assistants have joined us this week to support the social workers in delivering high quality services to children and young people. At the same time, turnover of staff in social care teams, which had been very high, has reduced below that of our comparative authorities, and the number of locum workers is reducing in line with our plans. So all in all, very good news. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak from the executive area on any issue? No? Okay. So that's the end of that particular item now. We move on.
I think Lindsay Ferris's hand has been up.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment, if I might.
Certainly.
When John spoke, he gave the impression that it was he. The Liberal Democrat group has been working hard to try and alleviate the problems of housing numbers. And it is very, very disappointing that it was given and no reference given that it has been cross-party that we have supported to deal with these issues. And I want to have that noted in the minutes. There's been an increase in time for speaking, and if John had approached me before the meeting, I could have had a very different approach to what was said. It is something that I absolutely agree. We both agree on this topic. 1,635 houses a year is an absolute, oh, I couldn't even think about what it would be like. Where on earth do you put them? Our area would be destroyed. I consider this to be something like what I would think like the battle in the war, Battle of Al Alamein. We are fighting against the wall. And I do agree with John's comments. And we on this side, on the Lib Dem side, absolutely support it. I have consistently said that the numbers of houses being forced on this area is far too high. Even the 789 or 856 or whatever we've had over the last 3 or 4 years is far too high. I think it must be lower, possibly 600, possibly 500, but no more. And we have got to get the message across to the minister, and I'm very pleased that John has spoken to him, and I've mentioned when's he going to come, because I think it's to all parties, all groups on this council to be able to see him. Town and parish councils and other representatives also need to see him, and I think it is such an important thing, and it is the most significant issue in the 20 years of politics I've been involved with. This is the most dangerous I have come across. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. I believe.
May I
yes,
just
certainly.
I'm extremely grateful to the Liberal Democrats for their support in this issue, and I apologise for the omission in my speech.
Thank you. Are there any more? No, that's the end of that item. So we now move on to agenda item 60, which is the motions. And it's 30 minutes per motion maximum on this. So motion 439, proposer is Councillor Rachel Burgess. Would you like to propose, please, Rachel Burgess?
Thank you. And my seconder is Councillor Boyt.
Yes, I was going to ask you that. Thank you. That's done.
Okay.
You have a seconder? Yes, you can speak now, I think 3 minutes, starting now.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep it short. So this motion was submitted to the last 2 full council meetings in order to highlight that the council's processes on council tax debt collection can make things very difficult for residents who are struggling to pay, and as well as to highlight the cost to the council. So on behalf of residents, I was really pleased to see last month that the executive have taken note of the motion, have now signed the council tax protocol. This is really excellent news. So building on that progress, this motion calls on the council to fully adopt the protocol and put in place all that is stipulated within it within this municipal year. So signing is the first step, and full adoption is now needed. The wording of the motion itself actually includes some of the key areas that now need to be implemented. So some of the examples include the 28-day so-called breathing space for those who are actually seeking debt advice, or the use of the standard financial statement to assess ability to pay. You know, these are the kind of details that now need to be put in place this year. But also, Mr. Mayor, this motion is a chance for all of us as a full council to send a united message to our residents that we are committed to the principles of fairness, to partnership working, transparency in council tax debt collection, and to show a full and sorry,
there are lots of voices.
Speaking.
Hello? There's lots of background voices and noises. Can we let the councillor speak, please? Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a chance for us all to show our full and unwavering support for all the detail that is included within this protocol. Therefore, as I doubt anyone would actually want to speak against this motion, Mr. Mayor, I would propose that under section 4.2.13.1, we could proceed straight to the vote so that we can show residents both our commitment to fulfilling that detail, not just signing up, but fulfilling it fully. And also we can move hopefully swiftly on to the other business in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. According to the sequence I've got here, Councillor Boyt, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I reserve my right, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there was a proposal there to do 4.2.13.1, which means no more speeches and we take a vote immediately.
Yes.
Unless
I'm
somebody...
just going to seek advice on that exact point. Councillor Bird said that because she doesn't think anybody will speak against it, we go to the vote. I need to ask, does anyone wish to speak against this? If you do, please use the hands up. No. So it looks like we go straight to the vote then. So can you all take hands down? Make sure all the hands are down, please. I'll go on display here. No, it's going. Right. So they're all down. If you wish to vote for this, on the vote immediately, if you wish to vote for this proposal, can you please use your hands up feature now? Okay, can you all take the hands down, please? And then we'll ask the same question for those who are against. All the hands down first, please. All hands down. There's still a few up. Still a couple. One left. Right, they're all down. Okay. Now we need to ask if there's anyone against. If you are against this, please use the hands up feature now. Right, now hands down, and can you, if you wish to abstain, can you use the hands up feature now, please? Right, I've announced that the motion is carried. So we move on to the next slide. Right, I'm just sorting my papers here. And the next one is motion 441. 440. Turn 2 pages.
440.
Yeah.
I think that's my one.
Yes, I've just turned 2 pages. That's all. Sorry. Yes, motion 440 to be proposed by Councillor Rachel Bishop Firth. Please, would you like to speak, Councillor Bishop Firth?
Thank you very much. This is a motion that I first submitted in October last year. It's been on the agenda several times and is only now being heard. With the government proposing to break international law, we now have just 16 weeks to prepare for the very real threat of the most chaotic hard Brexit possible. As a council, it's our responsibility to do everything that we can to foresee and mitigate the effects on our residents, with particular thought for those who may be elderly or vulnerable. We don't know how many EU citizens in the UK have not yet applied for settled status. Many of them are unaware that they need to do this. Perhaps they have lived in the UK for many years after marrying a British citizen, or they were born in the UK, or they have worked and paid taxes here for many years. They may have called this country home for decades and simply believe that they have the right to live here. They may not have fluent English or own a computer or smartphone, and because of COVID, they may be reluctant to leave the house. This leaves them vulnerable to becoming illegal immigrants in the country they call home. We've seen what happened to too many of the Windrush generation. We can't risk that happening to anyone here in Wokingham. I'm delighted to see that since I first submitted this motion last autumn, the Council has offered residents free help with obtaining settled status. We need to think about how we will ensure that all EU citizens in the borough are aware of this help and the need for it, especially thinking about how we can contact all those who may have a language or technology barrier. We need to show that we've given careful thought to how we will ensure that citizens of EU countries have seamless access to council services that their taxes have paid for. We should also consider that these individuals' homes and jobs could be at risk, and as the borough's employers and landlords fully understand their legal responsibilities and how to handle issues of immigration status. What reasonable steps can we take at a local level to ensure that this doesn't happen? The Council also needs to be very aware that there are an estimated 1.3 million British citizens who have made their homes in EU countries but may be forced to return to the UK when Brexit means that they lose their access to healthcare. Many of these people are elderly and many have made their homes overseas because of difficulties making ends meet in the UK on their pensions. We need to look at and monitor over the coming months the likelihood and numbers of these expats returning to Wokingham and how this could affect our responsibilities to assist with housing and other services. I'm therefore asking for councillors to approve this motion to ask our officers to urgently undertake and publish a review of how the council can best mitigate the effects of Brexit on local residents.
I have an amendment to propose, Mr.
Thank you. I didn't get a chance to ask you if you had a seconder, please. Could you tell me who the seconder is?
That's Rochelle Shepherd-Dubé.
Thank you. And you've had your 3 minutes just a bit too early, but I can now ask Councillor Rochelle Shepherd-Dubé, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Malcolm, when does my amendment get considered? I've tabled an amendment.
Yes, Rochelle has to speak first before that amendment can be submitted.
Thank you.
Please, Rochelle Shepherd-Dubé, please.
Okay. As an immigrant myself.
Well, sorry, I needed the answer. Were you going to speak now or are you going to speak later?
I'd like to speak now.
Okay, thank you. Speak.
As an immigrant myself, I understand very well about the uncertainty and lengthy and often not very clear rules instituted by the government and the resultant forms and procedures of the Home Office. At this point, with all the uncertainty generated by the pandemic and the likelihood of what's going to happen with Brexit, who the heck knows, many of the EU citizens are very unsure of what they have to do to remain in their homeland with their families and their life in the UK after this economic devastation and job losses caused by the pandemic. Many of the EU citizens contributed at great personal risk during the pandemic, working in many jobs in the NHS, and will continue to do so this winter. We applauded our NHS and the key worker heroes, but seem to have forgotten them after the pandemic. With the new cases of COVID-19, we will need them once again to save us. The fact that many of these still don't know how to apply for or all the procedures for settled status is abysmal. This is beginning to sound like it was done to the Windrush immigrants, and many landlords and employers are also mystified about what they're supposed to be doing. All these people would like to do is work in their adopted country, as well as they are most likely going to be the next wave of this winter. They'll be the ones actually saving our lives. An additional problem we have will be what to do with the British citizens who are now living in the EU if they wish or have to return to the UK. Where are we going to put them all? What are we going to do with them? The question is, what is Wokingham Borough Council doing at this time to help our fellow residents? Now, I applaud the idea that the council is helping some of them, But what more can we do to help some of our locally used citizens, to assist them to fill in forms, to correctly explain the documents they need, the proof they need to get settled status, and what are we sending out to employers and landlords in the borough to explain settled status, what they have to do, and to comply with all the rules before Brexit occurs, because we have no idea what's going to happen after Brexit, because international law doesn't matter anymore, I gather. All right, thank you.
Can I propose my amendment, Malcolm?
Sorry, I managed to mute myself again. Yes, do you, before you speak, do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Yes, I do.
Who is it, please?
It's a very good question.
I believe it's me, Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Daniel. Pardon me.
Daniel Sargent?
I think once you've heard what you've said, and I presume that you're going to just read what your amendment is, Pauline, I think we're going to need to call for an adjournment for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I can give you, I just wanted to get some clarity on the process, actually, because I've got a speech on the amendment, which I would like to give, but I'm very happy to just outline the amendment itself.
If we were in the hall, we would have had the amendment passed around. We got it on the screen.
Yes, Pauline can speak on this whilst we're reading this, in fact.
Well, I think I prefer you to read it first, so I can explain what the changes are. And I think the main thing the motion misses, apart from some facts, is that we actually did a lot on mitigation of the possible effects of Brexit this more than a year ago, and it doesn't recognise that. So I've changed the wording to make sure it publicises what we intend to do and what we've already done and what we've already provided. But I'd like to speak on this amendment as well, please.
Yes. Well, according to my notes, they'll be reading your document and the amendment being shared for you to look at on screen, and I can now allow you to speak for up to 3 minutes on it.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's my pleasure to propose an amendment to the EU motion, which I think will enable us to better reflect in the report and action plan the risks to our EU national residents and also some of the actions we've already taken. I was a member of the Working Borough Council Brexit Task Force, which sat around Christmas last year, not the one just passed, and took a lot of action in preparing ourselves for Brexit. In that time, we mapped out our processes of responses, worked with our partners to help them prepare, developed contingency plans with the help of the Scrutiny Task and Finish Group, and ensured our preparedness was robust. However, I think we also should look at this motion in context, because facts seem to be rather missing. In 2011, the latest data available, 14.1% of the resident population of the borough was non-UK born. And of them, is somebody rattling? Somebody fiddling with paper, sorry.
There's lots of background noises. Someone's got a microphone on and they're doing something other than listening or speaking. So if you don't...
Could I ask Rachel to turn her microphone off, because it's that microphone which is causing a problem.
Is it? Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Shall I continue?
Yes, please continue.
Yeah. So just to start again on that paragraph, in context, in 2011, 14.1% of the resident population of the borough was non-UK born, and of them, a minority of 2.8% were born in the EU. That's 4,359 people. The statement in the motion that the original promise not to change the status of EU residents lawfully resident in the UK has been broken is incorrect. Boris Johnson used his first common statement as Prime Minister to repeat unequivocally our guarantee to the 3.2 million EU nationals now living and working amongst us. He added, I thank them for their contribution to our society and for their patience, and I can assure them that under this government they will have absolute certainty the right to live and remain. Indeed, we would all agree with Boris when he said, we want people to be registered, and we're making an unequivocal commitment to make sure their rights are protected. The government says there are only two reasons why people won't be allowed to stay in the UK, either if they can't prove they were in the country before 2021, or if they are considered to be a serious and persistent criminal, or anybody who poses a security threat. I would ask the opposition, if they believe that, to name one person who has been refused in Wokingham who doesn't fit into these two categories. Are you suggesting serious and persistent criminals or terrorists should be allowed to remain in the UK? I would doubt you are. The point that a Windrush-style scandal is likely is scaremongering, seemingly intended to worry our most vulnerable residents. The latest figures available show that in the UK, 3.9 million have applied as of 31st of August, and 3.3 million have been granted a residency, with 10,900 refused. In this context, there were 3.6 million EU citizens in the UK overall in 2019, so more have applied than actually lived in the UK in 2019. This suggests an overwhelming majority have applied, and our UK national residents are quietly getting on with the registering, as we would expect. In order to help this, the borough developed regular communications and also provided registration services for people who didn't have the required equipment or needed help for other reasons. We also worked with our suppliers and staff to ensure they were able to apply for settled status and put support in place for them to apply, including the provision of equipment and IT services. As far as training is concerned, we promoted the employer's toolkit and made it available. We also had a course which had a particular focus on ensuring care leavers and children in care and other vulnerable groups who needed to apply for settled status did so. This was also a priority for the Home Office and the NHS, etc. £9 million of funding was provided for this. The government guidance has also been published in all EU languages and also in Welsh, as promised. To turn to the 1.2 million UK national residents abroad, the fiscal agreements are of course down to individual countries, not us. But I note, for example, that UK citizens countries
Pauline,
like
could we make it fairly prompt this last bit, because we're running up to the limit?
To those UK residents living in the UK. Despite my reservations over the messaging, I would like to urge you to support this amendment. It is always useful to review the effectiveness of the comprehensive actions I've outlined, and also to remind people of what we've put in place at their disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologise for the noises. I don't know where they're coming from. I hope they stop. Councillor Sargent, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
No, in the interest of time, I won't be speaking on this matter, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Lindsay here. I did mention about the issue of having a period of looking at it. This is the first we've seen the amendment. We do need a bit of time to be able to check whether we are happy with the revised wording. So it may take up to 10 minutes, but it may not.
Yes, I was anticipating this. In fact, I do have to ask the question. Councillor Bishop first. Can I ask if you accept the amendment? No? Not yet? Okay.
Can I have an adjournment for 10 minutes, please?
Adjournment for 10 to 50 minutes, yes, you can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that the phone? Yeah, I'll be there.
please.
That's that last sentence. Would you like to speak again?
We accept the amendment. Will you be publishing the report, please?
I can't.
Hold on, I must seek advice. Jorgensen's report.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor. They're asking if your report will be published.
Sorry, what report?
Presumably what you said during
No.
your stuff.
No, I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're talking about the review that the amendment suggested that a review was done and that it reported on both the things that had been done and also any other things that should be done. I wasn't intending in my amendment that wasn't published. Michelle.
Okay. Pauline, during her speech, referenced a report which had been done back in 2019. Now, I did find something on WBC website dating from 2019. It was extremely brief. If there is anything in addition to that, then will that be published? And then, yes, anything that comes out of this motion, will that be published as well?
Rachel, I will go away and find out what information there is that hasn't been published and make sure you see it.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we're still on an adjournment at the moment, are we? No?
No, the adjournment has come to an end, and I'm going to propose that we go to the vote.
Hold on.
I think it's 4213-1, I think, isn't it? If I remember right.
I think I need to do the same as I did before, which is ask if there's anyone against, if there's anyone who can speak against this. Okay, so can we do that? Can put all the hands down? And if you want to speak against this, could you now?
Malcolm, not all the hands are down, please.
Oh, they're still not down. Let's have a look. There's none showing on my screen.
They're all down now.
I think they are now. I think they are now.
Yes. So we've got to identify whether people want to speak against it. So if you want to speak against this, would you put your hands up now, please?
Sorry, Malcolm, this is against the amendment, isn't it?
This is...
No, it's against...
The amendment was accepted.
The amendment's been accepted.
Yes.
Yeah.
The amendment's been accepted, so it's the amended... It's the motion as amended.
The motion is amended. So is there anyone going to speak against the motion that is amended? Put the hands up now if you do, please. There are none going up. Yeah, none going up. So that means that we can go straight to the vote. Okay, can you, well, your hands aren't up, but if they were up, could you take them down, please? We now come to voting. Just a moment, I need. Yes, I'm just checking the notes here. Yes, we now need to vote on the amended motion. We've gone straight to it. So if you are voting for the amended motion, can you please put your hands up now? Okay, hands down, please. All the hands down, please. No, because we now need to ask who was the for. So we now need to do the against. More, please take the hands down. They're all still sitting up at the moment. Please take all your hands down. Still a few left. Right, we've had the fours. Now, if you are going to vote against this motion, can you please put the hands up now?
Malcolm, all my keys have stopped working, but I voted in favour of this.
Oh, okay. You voted in favour.
Yeah, and I can't do anything. I'm going to have to leave and come back in again.
Sticky
so my
keys,
hand
I
is
think.
down, even though it looks like it's up, because my keyboard's not working.
Right. And that last question I've just been asked now, all those who are going to be voting against. And I can't see much there.
Abstentions, Malcolm.
Right, I know. I just going to say put the hands down first. All the hands down. Now, if you wish to abstain, can you please use the hands up feature now? No. So the motion is carried. Okay. So I'll just take my notes.
Thank you very much.
Microphone. There we are. I now go on to, I think it's 441. Motion 441. It says here proposer is going to be Pauline Helios-Simons. Would Councillor Pauline Helios-Simons like to speak now, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to confirm that you're there as the proposer. I was going to ask who your seconder was.
Yeah, I was just about to say Rochelle Shepherd-Dubay is seconding it.
Right, thank you. So, as Pauline Helios-Simons, you are proposing it. You mentioned the seconder. You can now speak, Councillor Helios-Simons, up to 3 minutes if you wish.
Thank you. This motion promotes the installation of sprinklers or other automatic fire suppression systems known as AFSS in new buildings or those undergoing refurbishment. This is with the intent of reducing risk and the impact of fire on people, property and the environment. It's proven that sprinklers and other forms of AFSS save both lives and property. That they can be effective in the rapid suppression of fire is evidenced by a report compiled by the National Fire Chiefs Council. Evidence has shown that sprinklers will save lives, protect property, reduce the impact of fire on the environment, and reduce the interruption to business, improving safety for both individuals and the community in general. In supporting the fitting of sprinklers in all buildings, the fire service has fitted them in its own building stock and has successfully achieved a number of high-profile sprinkler installations, with officers working to increase the number of systems installed as and when legislation requires it, or by influencing developers of the benefits or design freedoms at the planning stage. With this aim in mind, we as local authority members can play an important role promoting the benefits of sprinklers and ensuring they are actively considered as a positive risk reduction measure that mitigates the human impact and economic and environmental cost while maintaining firefighter safety. Information setting out the local authorities' responsibilities to this end is detailed in the Royal Town Planning Institute guidance, which is called Responsibility for Fire Safety during the Development Application Process in England, and I recommend that our officers read that. The fire service should therefore be treated by our council at the start of any planning application process as a statutory consultee. for building planning consent and in consideration of the most significant risks. Through the planning application or building control process, we should promote and support the installation of sprinklers or other AFSS for all new and refurbished buildings, and particularly those that present the most significant risk to the public or firefighters. In addition to lobbying for the creation of a legal requirement to fit sprinklers or AFSS in buildings, we can promote the installation of sprinklers as part of local planning considerations. We can also support the National Fire Chiefs Council position on sprinklers by writing to central government to express support for the creation of a legal requirement to fit sprinklers or AFSS in buildings. The role of the fire service is a good deal more than just them saying where the fire hydrant should go. I want to emphasise that it is important that our efforts, our officers, involve the fire service at the beginning of the process and engage them in full and clear discussion and listen to their expertise.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rochelle Shepherd-Dubay, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'd like to speak now, but I'll make it very quick.
Okay, thank you.
We
Speak now.
have passed two previous motions, not one, but two motions on sprinklers and other fire suppression systems for school. But apparently they weren't prescriptive or clear enough to simply say that any new school building built in Woking greater than 15 square meters in area or above a single story is required to have a sprinkler system to preserve the lives and education availability for our children. During the pandemic, we've learned exactly how difficult it was for children to get an education. Will the students from the damaged schools be forced to do this again? Will they be forced? How will they get into university? During the pandemic, the GCSE grading fiasco was terrible, but lessened because it happened to every child in the UK. When a single school is damaged, it's unlikely that universities will be generous enough to take this into account. Thank you. Short, sweet, just vote for it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this? Raise your hand if you wish to speak. Can you raise your hand, please?
I have my hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Councillor Angus Ross. Yes, would you like to speak now, please?
So, thank you, Mayor. I don't want to add much to what's been said there, but from my long experience on the fire authority, this is a matter really of frustration of where we are in some ways. Building regulations as written at the moment don't help us. And the process for schools that the Department of Education go through is only a risk analysis to satisfy insurers rather than safety and the impact it has on schools and the community with children in their education, similar to what we've seen with education over the last few months. We must support the proposals as we cannot control directly private schools, academies and free schools, and many of the commercial leisure and other facilities. We must work with the fire service in Berkshire on how best to lobby central government, and through a former chief fire officer, we have a good link there as he leads in retirement on that whole area in getting sprinklers recognised and better put into regulation. I'm just, as a side issue, delighted that the council has planned to install sprinklers in the Dinton Activity Centre rebuild. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Andy Croy, it looks like you're next
Should
on the
we
list.
not be moving to the vote if nobody's voting, talking against
just a reminder, Mr. Mayor, it's your ask should be, does anyone want to speak against it, so we don't get unnecessary talk when we could be moving on to the other motions. That's all.
Councillor Croy just made the point I was going to make.
Okay, that's fine. So in that case, can I ask, make sure if everything's down? Does anybody wish to speak against this motion? If you do, please raise your hand now. Yep. Right, there are no hands, so we can go straight to the final vote. So can you take your hands down, please? Well, they weren't up, but make sure any stray hands go down. And then if you wish to vote for this item, can you please use the hands up feature now? Thank you. That is unanimous, and therefore the motion is carried. I believe this is 3 in a row.
Mr. Mayor, is it past 10 o'clock yet?
It's about, yes, 2 minutes past 10.
In that case, I would like to raise Standing Order 4212M to extend the meeting by an additional half hour in order to ensure that for once we can get through all the business. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to second that. Stephen Conway.
Right. Okay. So we need to take a vote on that, don't we? So let's have a look. Yes. If we, just a moment, I need the paper here. Shuffling. Right, got the second. Right, go to the vote on the proposed extension, and they'll be taken up using the hands up voting. So everything's down. If you wish to vote for this, can you put your hands up now, please? Hands down now, please. And now we're going to vote those who are against this extension. Would you use your hands up if you are against? Sorry, they're not all down. I've just spotted. Can you put them all down and we'll do a fresh against?
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt. Do you not have the capacity to lower all the arms?
No. No.
You don't? Really?
No, I don't. No, I can only observe what's there. I can ask people to put them down, but I can't do it forcibly. So if everybody puts them down, we're now going to ask on the against. So hands down. Now, if you are going to go against, could you put your hands up now? Against the extension. Right, we have a bit of a problem here in that some people have voted twice, which is quite confusing. So we're going to have to do it again from those who are.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. If somebody voted the first time, then the second time shouldn't count. And I think we can categorically say who voted twice, which is Councillor Patman and Councillor Bart. So I think their vote shouldn't be counted the second time round.
I think we have to start again. To be honest.
Councillor G is correct.
I think you'll have to start again, Malcolm.
I think we'll start again. Otherwise, we're going to have two lists and compare them all, which say changes. We'll just start.
It's saying that if somebody votes one way, they can change their mind and undo it. That doesn't seem quite right to me. They voted once. They should.
Doesn't this seem like wasting time to everybody? Just people messing around, not voting correctly or in with discipline.
Which is only about
No.
extending the meeting. It's not even about a motion as such. So we're just going to start afresh, please. Everybody's hands
Sorry,
down.
I strongly object. Could you please announce how many people voted twice?
2.
Yes, it was Councillor Barth and Councillor Patman, and they voted for, and therefore they cannot vote against.
If the mayor's not aware of that, you can't count.
I'm afraid we're going to have to do it again.
No.
No, absolutely not.
No.
So this is real democracy, isn't it? You didn't vote the way we told you, so now you have to vote the way we're telling you again.
Malcolm, who's running this?
Well, exactly, because it clearly
It's
is
not the Liberal Democrats, is it?
It's the Constitution.
It's the Constitution that's driving this.
Or the independents?
Oh, yes, great.
Just do it again, please. There's confusion here. Just do it again.
We've made the decision. We're going to do it afresh, but they're just rebelling in the ranks, which is wasting time. Can we just start afresh? Please put all your things down. Please do not vote twice. The request is for those who are for, those who are against, and then we abstain. We'll get through it quicker this way.
Please note that I will be asking Andrew Moulton to make adjudication, please. That's what he's here for. What does the Constitution say about when people have voted twice? Please. Not just mute me.
I haven't muted you. I don't have the ability to do that, Lindsay.
Somebody muted me.
I'm going to mute and seek advice. Sort advice on this from the appropriate sources. The Constitution does not say which way it is. It's silent on this. But what it does say is that if people vote twice, that vote is invalid. It invalidates it, and therefore you ought to.
Therefore, they can't be counted.
If it's invalidated, I know what I'm going to do next time. Vote twice.
Council, this is Andrew Moulton. I've been just providing some advice to the mayor. So as the mayor rightly says, the Constitution itself is silent on a particular situation like this. However, Knowles, which is the reference that all democratic services would use, actually describes a situation like this and says that the member can change their vote up until the point that the actual decision is announced. So I think in the circumstances that we're in presently, I think we should start the process again so there is no confusion in terms of the vote.
Right, so we will be starting afresh, which is what we decided to do a few minutes ago, hopefully. Can everybody's hand be down? It looks like they are. Right. If you are in favour of this extension, please put your hand up now. Right, put your hands down. All of them, please. Please put all the hands down. There's still a few hands up. Please do not vote this second time. Now we are going to do the against. If you are against the extension, please can you indicate with your hand up now without voting a second time.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, it appears Lindsay's voted twice.
Absolutely. Invalidated it, haven't I?
So we need to vote again.
I think you've invalidated your own vote. I'm not sure about anybody else's.
So that is nonsensical, Pauline. If we know who voted wrongly the first time, why should it be any different the second time? This is nonsense.
I'm not arguing.
It's a clear intention.
You heard what Andrew Moulton said?
Silent. Absolutely silent.
So, on so based on what Andrew said, we've got to
change my mind halfway through, and that's what we say. I'm going to say you can't do it twice because this is a point of principle. As you've hit a principle here, and this has to be dealt with by Constitutional Review Working Group after this meeting. And I want it to be on the agenda because it was obvious that there were two members of the Conservative group who voted for it because that's what they thought, and then it got clear that it was to be voted against. Now that's what happened. So they voted twice, and that's why I have deliberately voted twice the second time. So you can do what you like. It's silent on this, so we can carry on all night, because if you want me to, I'll keep voting twice, because this needs to be clarified.
Well, it's nice to have a Lib Dem principle. You don't get many of those, do you?
Don't be so insulting on that.
Speaking as somebody with a sticky hand key, you don't know why the people voted twice at all.
Well, let's keep going for 17 minutes then.
Yeah, all votes.
The alternative we have here is a recorded vote. Everybody gets to speak their vote. We just go through the list. Everybody says whether it's for or against. As a recorded vote.
Okay, I'd like to propose a recorded vote.
And you can't vote twice on the recorded vote, so we're going to go through that.
I'll propose that, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Propose what?
Okay. Keith Baker.
Support it, yes.
A recorded vote.
Keith Baker.
Against.
Parry Bath.
Against.
Rachel Bishop Firth.
For.
Laura Blumenthal.
Against.
Chris Bowring.
Against.
Shirley Boyd. Shirley Boyd.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt with a recorded vote. Do we not need 6 members to ask for a recorded vote? It's not a proposal and a second, is it?
Yes, we do.
He's right.
I agree with Andy Croy on this. There should be 6 members asking for a recorded vote.
Okay, I've suggested.
I made a decision after 2 or 3 abortive ones. I made a decision that we ought to resolve it by doing a recorded vote, and that would surely make sense. And everybody is going through. Now we have. I would like to continue with the recorded vote, please.
Is it constitutional?
Prue Bray.
For.
Rachel Burgess.
For.
Jenny Cheng.
Against.
Ulla Green Clark.
Against.
Stephen Conway.
For.
Gary Cowan.
For.
Andy Croy.
For.
Richard Dolinsky.
For.
Carl Duran.
For.
Lindsay Ferris.
For.
Michael Firminger.
Against.
Paul Fishwick.
For.
Jim Frewein.
For democracy.
Maria G.
For.
Guy Grandison.
Against.
Charlotte Haytham-Taylor.
Against.
John Halsall.
Against.
David Hare. David Hare.
For.
Pauline Hellier-Simmons.
Against.
Emma Hobbs.
Against.
Graham Howe.
Against.
Clive Jones.
For.
Pauline Jorgensen.
Against.
Sarah Kerr.
For.
Diane King.
Against.
Abdul Loys.
Against.
Tahir Maher.
For.
Charles Magetz.
Against.
Adrian Mather.
For.
Ken Meow.
Against.
Andrew Mickelberg.
For.
Stuart Monroe.
Against.
Gregor Murray. Gregor Murray.
Against.
Barry Patman.
Against.
Malcolm Richards.
As Mayor, I abstain.
Angus Ross.
Against.
Daniel Sargent.
Against.
Imogen Shepherd-Debay.
For.
Rochelle Shepherd-Debay.
For democracy and what we're actually getting paid to do, to discuss motions.
Caroline Smith.
For.
Chris Smith. Chris Smith. All right, okay. Wayne Smith.
Against.
Bill Soane.
Against.
Alison Swaddles.
Against.
Can everybody mute? I'm getting dings
Right.
and whistles.
I've got the numbers. There are 22 for and 26 against. On that basis, the extension is not extended, and we don't stop. We don't extend the time to 11 o'clock. I've got some exact wording here. The meeting will not be extended and will conclude at 10:30 p.m.
10:30 now.
What clock are you running, Ken?
10:18.
It's 10:18.
This was 10 minutes.
Yes,
ago.
yes, but there isn't enough time to start another motion, is there?
I'm looking at this note here. By the Constitution, a motion cannot be moved if there is only 15 minutes remaining before the meeting is due to conclude. So on that basis,
The triumph for democracy.
So that one ceases.
A triumph for not democracy, that's for sure.
Okay.
A triumph for everybody has to go to sleep at this time, isn't it?
Yeah, night.
I think we had a fairly successful part earlier on. It's just this last 20 minutes seems to be a mess. But anyway, that is not extended then, and the can't do the motion. So good night.
Councillor Ferris hadn't interfered, we could have done it.
Thank you, Malcolm. Good night, Mr. Mayor.